Look, they said that I couldn't do it, so I went and did it. W's only, you know I've been winning. Top of the world, the globe is spinning. If you know, I've been on a mission. Go. Okay, let's get it. Got a little time on my hands like a wristwatch. I don't got time for the brakes and a pit stop. Race through the gridlock, take it like Chris Rock. Right to the chin, still win. Heavy metals like Slipknot. Got the driving, I got tunnel vision. I just hit my stride the way I run the business. I've been making paper like I'm Dunder Mifflin. See the end game, I got one division. Look, I don't ever bother with a critic. Hit him with a chronicle of Riddick. Boom, bottle full of Ritalin. I hit him with a little bit of riddle me this.
Happy Monday morning. Drop us a GM in the chat down below. Give us some love on the space. It's linked up above. Go hit the likes, the bookmarks, the repost, all appreciated, as well as the reminders for the show schedule for the rest of the week. The carousel is just to the left of today's space. We'll get rolling here in about 60 seconds.
If you know, I've been on a mission. Okay, let's get it.
I've been on a mission like totally spice. On my bed is she bad, but she totally nice. Nails are blue and her toes feel like white. They compete niet met jou, dat is hoe voor mijn lijk. He knew it for sure, but he left with a why. Yeah, we live, but we destined to die. And you say it on me, but I'm ending a lie. I'm a lie en ik voel me net Memphis een paai. En ik jaag op de coat in de scene. Moest eigenlijk rennen, we lopen misschien. En ik wil niet eens kijken, mijn ogen die zien. En ze er niet genoeg dat ik kopen wat 10 doof in een beam. Hier co-star, I got 5 on my name, I got no star. Come to me just to see how my shows are. Yeah.
They said that I couldn't do it, so I went and did it. W's only, you know I've been winning. Top of the world, the globe is spinning. If you know, I've been on a mission. Go. Okay, let's get it.
This episode is brought to you by DGen Network, the only community-based Web3 media network, bringing you the very best content in the NFT and cryptocurrency space. Please visit dgen.network and check out our other great shows. That's DGen, DGEN .network.
Welcome to the future.
Welcome to Coffee with Captain GM. Happy Monday morning. If you haven't already done so, drop us a GM in the chat down below. The space, it's linked up above. Go hit that like, the bookmark, the repost. If you feel so inclined, we'd appreciate it. And as we warm things up here this morning, if you haven't already hit the reminders for the rest of the week, that carousel is just to the left of today's space. But welcome. Happy Monday morning. I'm Cap, joined by my co-host Steve. Should be a fun show today. A busier Web3 weekend, I feel, than normal. Some news. We'll have to get our friends over in the Pixel Vault family on here at some point to talk Wolf Game and all that happening. But before we get into all of that, and any non-financial advice, just entertainment purposes only here on this show, but we may be talking some tokens or two today. But before we get into all that, we've got to start with the more important, what everyone tunes in for, especially Shiba King and everyone else that started getting the text from Tesla after we talked last week. Have we pulled the trigger on I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going in blind, but have we pulled the trigger on a new car yet, Steve, GM?
We have not. We're going to go and test drive. Because we're looking into the buy window now, we have delayed it a little bit because we are going to go in and test drive again the X, the Y, the features, etc.
The X is new in the.
Sorry, not the X. That was a lie. The 3 and the Y. The X is way out. Well, the X is way the way out. I mixed up all my models. The 3.
You landed a deal I wasn't aware of. How rich did Steve become here?
No. Yeah, no. We're going to test drive the 3 and the Y. Give them a run. Pretty sure I narrowed down colors, getting close to it. So probably if I go the Y, I think I'm going to actually go white because it's really clean and I saw some in the wild. The 3, I would likely go black. So that's probably the plan, but we're going to try a couple out and then figure out what we're going to order. So we're going to pull the trigger, I think, and buy in the next week or so, which is exciting. Also actually had a really interesting moment this weekend, Cap. And as a parent of a kid who plays sports, I'm sure you can appreciate this one too. By the way, give us a like, a retweet, a comment down below. Tell us how your Web3 weekend went. Plenty to discuss this morning, plenty of good stuff. But as we warm the room up, I had a really interesting, the second time where I felt really, really proud of my son and his soccer team in a less than ideal outcome. So a while ago, I won't retell the story. The TLDR is we had played in a tournament where we stepped up a couple of leagues in this major state tournament. And his team had gone undefeated and beat everybody by like 5 goals or more in the regular season in their league. And so it was like just an absolute, like they were just like shellacking everybody. And they go to this tournament And they end up getting beat pretty bad. This is last year's what happened. And, the TLDR is when they had nothing to play for, weren't going to advance in the tournament, they beat the best team in the tournament in a crazy gutty game just because they out-hustled them. And we were really proud of them, even though we weren't going to play further that day or the next day. It was like seeing them step up and do that was great. Well, yesterday, unexpectedly, my son's soccer team had to play another soccer team that had like 20 kids on it. And because of other sports and other things, because this team's full of really good athletes, we had a kid who was sick. We had a kid who was out of town. All of our goalies were out and weren't there. A couple of kids were there playing baseball, including the coach's son, but the coach still came to coach the game, even though his son's baseball is sort of his big sport, and he was playing travel baseball with another kid on the team. They had to play 5-on-7 in like 85-degree weather, and it's been cold, so this is like the first really hot day. They played their tail off. They were in the game until the end, and it ended up being like 3-1. But they were like at one point like down like 2-1, playing 5-on-7 against this team, and it wasn't even necessarily just that they like. My inclination is they probably win the game. Well, they would have won the game at their full strength. They were missing all three people who play goalie. So other kids subbed in for goalies and just stood on their head. They were missing their offensive players. But the fact, as a parent, like you're sitting there with almost tears in your eyes watching these 9-year-olds who are, outnumbered by 2 guys on a soccer field, which, by the way, that's a lot to be outnumbered by when you look about a game of passing in space. And for them to still play in that game the way they did, it's really strange how you have these moments where you almost get more proud of the outcome in a defeat. And all the kids were obviously disappointed. They were upset. They were, at some point, I think, frustrated with some of their teammates who didn't make it out. Obviously us, as parents, like the coach anticipated 9 were showing up. And so they're going to have like 2 subs and have their 7 guys. And then when only 5 showed up, they were like, no. So at least for me, it was a proud parent moment to kind of witness, I guess, to witness them like just go out and be so gutty and gritty. So at least for me, like it was a crazy day yesterday of these emotions where like as a parent, you're like, damn, they could have won that game if they were full strength. Because they're also missing like, 2 kids who are like some of the best athletes in their school and all these other things who play on the team. But it was like, I'm almost like those moments really build character sometimes. When you get away from them, you're like, man, what a great performance. So anyway, that not like a, thing that we need to go down any rabbit holes on, but just one of those moments that I figured I'd share where it's like just a proud parent moment,
Yeah, it's awesome. Like, I mean, the reality is win or lose, your son and his teammates are not going to remember the win or loss 5 years from now. He very well likely could remember the game they played down 2 people and gave it their all. And it's like, you've talked about how your L's are just learnings. And I think like while kids probably don't define it that as well or don't quite realize it at the time, I believe wholeheartedly that at least subconsciously there's big lessons that come in much more so in games like that than a game they go out there and beat someone 8-1 and they forget about not 5 years from now, they forget about by 2 Thursdays from now.
That's a great way of putting it, by the way. It's like I can't imagine, like when I think about their games their season last year, to your point, I rarely or don't think about the game where their coach does this thing where he starts yelling, look for passes. And that's his fancy way of saying stop scoring because we're up, 10-1 and it was, 9-year-old soccer game or whatever. I never remember those, but I still remember that tournament game that they won after they had lost and how they played and how they responded. And the other thing that's crazy about this, and I don't know if you have this experience too, or as your kids get older, maybe not as much, but the crazy thing, because the coach's daughter's on her son's rec league team too, so I sit next to the coach of the game sometimes and things like that he gets to witness more than us is that because we drop him off at practice, and it's not like we always, sometimes we hang out and watch practice, but not a ton because there's a lot going on, it's easy to forget that they're 9 because you watch them play like this well-oiled machine, and then you watch them when they're at practice or you watch them when they're like, in like, because in practice they're messing around a little more, they're a little more loose, a little more comfortable. And sometimes they work in a game, they're all like rolling around. They played like tag on the ground, rolling around. And you're like watching them, you're like, oh yeah, like these kids that are like whipping the ball faster off their feet than most grown adults, winning games by a gazillion goals. Like they're 9 years old, like they're 9-year-old kids. Like And it's like, you know it with your own kid, but you almost forget it with the other kid and the other like personality traits and things that they have. So anyway, it was a cool moment. And it's just like watching them all just like, like they, at one point in the game cap, I kid you not, because it was so tiring. Like I said, hottest day of the year so far, like it's been unseasonably cold. So they're not even used to the weather. And like, they would rotate who was on offense, which was by our bench in the second half, so that like somebody could kind of control the ball or clear the ball, and somebody else, like while the ball was out or whatever, or while their goalie was picking up the ball, could go drink water on the sideline because they were just falling over. And like, you just see that effort and you're like, it's almost like those things where it's like, you don't have a choice. You can't give up. You can't sit down. You can't call it quits. Like you just keep going. And like, I don't know. I think there's like a lot of gritty life lessons that you learn and stuff like that. And so like, it just reinforces your, getting your kids out there, whether it's sports or some other activity, doing stuff together. So it was cool. That was sort of my Sunday, but I figured I'd open with that because that was like one of those stories where I found myself and then we end the day again. You forget they're 9. We start by that day. By the end of the day, it's my son stalling for bedtime as we debate whether who would win if all of Andy's toys and Toy Stories attacked you. And we debated whether it mattered if you were ready or not ready, whether it was ambush, whether you prepared, what do you have access to? Do all the toy soldiers get to come? So it's like to go from like a life lesson sports like Sunday and turn that over into a, like what, it's like a 9-year-old talking to like, something that I personally, I love those sorts of discussions. It's just, I don't know, hilarious Sunday. So, good times. No Tesla yet because we had because again, you know how it is at this age. I got a 9-year-old, I got a 12-year-old. We got activities all the time. So we got to figure out, like, me and Mrs. NFT Bark, what we're probably going to do is we're going to try to find time one day during this week to sneak into Tesla during the day because there aren't going to be as many appointments and we don't have the kids at that point. Do the test drives and figure it out.
Well, I obviously then kids still in school. Is this the last week or how long do they go?
They have 2 weeks left. So 2 weeks left, and then we are into summer, which is wild. So yeah, it's
we got mine has exams this week and done. It's wild. School year flew.
Yeah. No, it was I don't know. Do you think about the fact that it's halfway through 2024 almost already? It's like that's kind of bananas. Like I feel like we just flipped over. We were just at Basel, but so much has happened since then. Like think about it. At Basel, there were supposedly fake rumors that we all thought were true about Moonbirds being acquired. Flash forward, or about Proof being acquired. Flash forward, Proof is in the hands of Yuga. Kevin Rose has exited Web3. Like the amount of things that have changed since we were sitting with Kevin D-Gods in the D-Gods house. Now Kevin is no longer with D-Gods.
That is kind of wild. I have not thought that specific benchmark of Art Basel, but just those two Kevins, RIP Kevins, I guess, in this space. That's wild. Like there really has been a lot, and this is just December. Like it's really not even been a half a year since this time, and there's been some pretty big moves, and like that's just the beginning. That's just 2, right, of several pretty material changes. I feel. We also had at the time it was still Daniel Allegre leading Yuga, right? Like it really has been a pretty active last 6 months or so. Speaking of, we do have Ape Fest ticket claim tomorrow, so don't need to get into great detail, but just make sure if you're looking to claim tickets that you've connected your token proof, you've done went through the FAQ and you're ready to go. Holders of Apes will have 15 minutes prior to opening up to Apes and Mutants to do the claim. And just make sure you're on top of that. Don't wait till last minute and run into some, I got to set this up and end up missing out. Hopefully it's smooth and no issues there. But yeah, you made me think about talking Art Basel, made me think about, geez, we're going from Art Basel to ticket claim tomorrow. And it has been think of something like Fantasy Top wasn't even an idea probably at Art Basel. And has captured the zeitgeist. Not going down the Fantasy Top rabbit hole again this morning, Steve, but I will tell you, I am becoming a bigger and bigger Blast bull. It has I'm having fun.
You were trying to make bets in my comments yesterday. That was wild, or a couple days ago.
And just forgetting about Fantasy Top for a second, because I know there's certainly a variety of opinions there. And where I was going with that, we can post your pull up here in a minute. But where I was going with that is like, how are we defining success, right? Like, I don't, like, is it likely that Fantasy Top it doesn't have as many users and is not moved forward 3 years from now? Sure. But I think I think what we've seen, what they've done, I do believe it'll be very impactful. It may not be them that's the ultimate end-all, be-all endpoint, but I think the combination of what we've seen with Fantasy Top and these third-party, this concept of third-party rewards programs, loyalty incentive programs, what we're seeing on Blast, and we got another proof point over the weekend with Wolfgame announcing they're moving to Blast. It's created excitement. Something that it's like I sent out a tweet. I don't understand why Zed hasn't made the move. Like why if you're on, no offense to Polygon, if anyone's on the team or hey, they're fine. There's no reason to be there. There's no third-party loyalty incentive. Polygon did a great job of attracting builders by giving the builders grants. Blast is doing it by, instead of giving it to the builders per se, it's while they are, it's with the expectation that they pass it along to the end user. And like, I am really enjoying IKB. IKB is like, it's DFS. It's like DraftKings meets Underdog Pick'em on chain. And the fact that I can play something I normally do, but now it's a little better. And mainly what makes it a lot better is I'm also earning gold while I play the game that I would be playing anyway. So it's like I pinned up above, Colony has a drop today. It's a curated Pokemon drop. It's $100. Like I'm not a Pokemon collector. I'm probably going to participate in this drop today if I can, because I'd like to. I plan to send in some cards. I want to do my own curated drop, and I love what Andrea and Joey and team are doing over there. So I'm going to support them. And oh, by the way, by doing so, I'm going to get rewarded some gold. Like, sign me up. This whole concept of the chain rewards, not just going to devs, not just grants that are to attract the devs, but rather this. It's like double dipping loyalty programs, especially for all these protocols that are launching and have their own. It's like getting your hotel rewards program plus hotels.com plus cash back on your credit card you booked it with. It's like we're like triple dipping here, I feel. And it's the difference is, instead of like, oh, I gotta fly 100 flights to get a free one, here it's like, when I guess, let me put it this way. When I first started, I didn't move much over. I just moved a little over an ETH when I started on Blast. I'm thinking like 100 gold would be great. Now it's like anything less than 1,000, I'll probably be a little disappointed. And what's wild is most of what I'm doing, it doesn't feel like farming. It's stuff like, again, IKB, it's a daily fantasy game that I enjoy. Like, I am excited about their football product. And if they had a best ball, I'd be going even harder right now. It's just, I think that we're really seeing a somewhat of a golden era of consumer apps. Not all of them are going to have legs and be sustainable forever. Not all of them are going to break out of Web3 and crypto. But it doesn't need to be all. I think it's some of them can, some of them will. And I think that has a potential to really open up the floodgates for more builders. When it's just like, how do you compete? It's like, how does, let's not use that as an example. I don't want to pick on him. If there's another DFS fantasy type app that goes on chain and they launch on Polygon, how in the world would they compete with IKB? Like, genuine question. Like, so if someone's launching now, and I don't see how in the world they can compete with someone that has this additional incentive and additional liquidity. I don't think anyone new would probably go that route. So if someone's existing and they're just like, they're struggling to recapture attention or market share, why wouldn't they follow this Wolfgame path and Like, maybe we just need to have G-Funk on and ask him the question point blank. Like, why don't they? And maybe it's because they just made the move and there's some contractual agreement. Because my next thought was going to be like, why don't they do the same with Battle Plan? Like, I've stopped playing Battle Plan because it was like, I guess it was profitable, but I'm not really sure. And it was, a grind to where it wasn't. I enjoyed it, but it just wasn't. I've got so much else going on. It didn't seem, financially the best use of my time, even if it was passive in the background. If they were on Blast, I'd be playing every day. Like, it's just like, I can't be the only one that's thinking like this, no?
So the question, like, I guess becomes like, are you saying, who could compete with them in a future state with this sort of thing, basically, right? Because like
right now, like we've talked like, okay, the future, I think some people think the future is omni-chain. It's not going to be important what chain you're on. It's rather, does the tech work? Can you obfuscate? Can you hide the tech? Can you have good UI, a front end where the users don't know the difference? My experience on IKB, it's the tech is hidden. Blast as a L2 is functioning. It's very low cost. I don't notice any fees, and it doesn't feel like I'm on chain. Like, it's just like they're doing a good job of that now. I don't think gold goes away anytime soon. I realize TGE is coming in the end of June. I think that we'll likely see. I think Machi actually had a good take. I tend to agree. Pac-Man probably does some form of staking or something that's going to incentivize people to keep their tokens on locked up. Like, we're I think probably very naive if we don't think there's something coming next. And I think that's a good thing. I think the continuing rewarding user, like Wolf Game, I had zero interest in picking up another game to learn. I love the team over there. They're great. We're advisors on Reboot. I had zero interest in playing Wolf Game. Now I have a bag of wool. I got how they did the migration was great. How they incorporated new communities, ETH NFT assets, holders of different Blast assets. That was awesome. That was very smart. They're getting wide distribution. They gave a small bag of wool to everyone. Again, getting that wide distribution. They're likely going to hit a jackpot that'll get more and more attention. And so not only did I buy an extra bag of wool, I'm shopping for sheep and wolves. And will I be playing Wolf Game or Cave Game forever? Will I be playing it 3 years from now? Probably not. But I'm here, and as long as it's semi-enjoyable and I can get paid to do it in the short term by way of Blast Gold, like they've converted me. They've picked me up as a new user because they moved to Blast. They probably I can't think of any other way other than some other different incentive program to where they would have attracted me as a user other than what they just did by migrating to Blast.
Yeah, it's. I will say, like as far as competing, like on one end, like in the crypto space for sure. Like, I mean, if you're building like a competitive product, I guess because you're like who wins building on Polygon? It's like, well, I mean, like you could build like for a consumer application on Polygon, which is the thing they're looking at with people who aren't comfortable in this yet. But the thing is, we don't know what the world looks like in the future with something like this in a variety of ways. Number one, we don't know if Blast Gold runs out, right? If that's going to be something that's going to happen at some point in the next, 6 months, whatever time frame, and all of a sudden it's like, what's going on with Blast? We don't have the same Blast Gold mega incentives anymore. So like that would be one thing that if they can't figure out how to keep that going, they lose a couple of, they lose their incentive structure, effectively a token distribution for new businesses. They lose the distribution in the jackpot. So like that's thing number one. Number two.
So at that point, assuming that plays out like that, I'm guessing 6 months from now, a year from now, whenever that happens, I'm guessing there's likely one or two other L2s or, like Monad might be it. And there's Monad Gold. Like, why, what would, and maybe this sounds really ignorant from the non-dev talking here, but why not spin up a carbon copy instance on another chain? Why not give your users, hey, if you want to keep playing on Polygon, more power to you. We're also going to spin up an instance on Blast, and you can play the place you want. There's probably going to be more liquidity, more action on the blast distance because that's where the attention is now. And oh, by the way, there's this extra incentive if you play over there. Like 6 months from now, okay, we're gonna spin up our Monad instance. Is this what am I missing as far as like that omni-chain world to not just keep, go where the people are, go where the incentives are?
Well, here's the thing. I'm not dev smart enough to kind of answer that question. What I will say is like, I don't know, again, this is like going to be like half baked because I didn't prep for this particular one this morning, but I think like there is something to be said about how are there other, like, okay, so I look at I'm trying to combine different like stories here because it's funny because you talk about, games and what people are building. There's, Pixelmon has been building sort of like, Kevin's come a long way, right? Like speaking of Kevin's, I was actually it's funny. I was going to say earlier when you're talking about Kevin's leaving, not Pixelmon. Pixelmon is partnering actually with Memeland with their Mon Drop. And, I've got my stake land, I got my meme staked in Stakeland. So I'm earning towards that and debating how I want to play that game on which side. But like, I wonder if there is an incentive play like that where Pac-Man, again, like, is it just simply within the native ecosystem or is there something they can do? How do I say this? Like, where like the way Memeland is working with Pixelmon, right? Memeland is specifically working with Pixelmon on trying to, do this airdrop and they're going to have part of it. Like, is that something they could do for the jackpot or incentives with people who are, I don't know, maybe they're just putting shit coins on blast or like, what are things they could do that would not necessarily require, because I mean, what did we hear from Gigi when I was off last week? When I was going to my doctor, waiting an hour for my doctor to fucking get there. Like, what do we learn about, how she's like, I don't pay for my events. I am offering them a service because they get to get in front of a bunch of good people. I do a really good job. I don't have to pay for it. Is there a world, and again, this might be me sounding ignorant as well, but is there a world where Pac-Man doesn't even have to pay for some of the incentives on his own, in his own jackpot, and you just have, because companies on blast, like for example, if the Colony wants exposure on blast, can they be like, we're going to eat the cost of, 24 cards, right? 24 one-piece cards, which, value out to a few $1,000s, and those go in the jackpot as potential winnings, and people who win them just have them distributed to their wallets. So, is there a world where like them themselves become almost part of the jackpot? Or is this just an absolutely insane idea that is completely wrong, Cap?
No.
Coles.
I mean, Ape Chain's coming. Why, how out of the realm of possibilities is it, whether it's a Yuga sponsored initiative or it's an AIP that someone spins up and funds it? Why you couldn't tell me, like I couldn't, at this point right now, I couldn't be convinced that a Ape Chain jackpot that simply just mimics what we're seeing on Blast and rewards, like, think of it, instead of someone buys a Vonga pullover, a can of board shorts, a everything token book. Well, could you create your own reward incentive program? Yeah, you could. Could we do the same with board shorts? Sure, we could. But what do you think carries more value and be more impactful? Us doing our own thing that someone, you could buy another everything token, or when I drop another book, you could use your credit on that. Or every purchase you get entered into this, a drawing into this jackpot of ApeCoin that goes off, randomly every so, like why couldn't a very similar mechanic, like it's working, it's drawing attention, and where I think this, at the root of all this is the third-party loyalty incentive, the third-party reward program. And I think crypto creates that environment. It makes all that possible. I guess you could have done it under traditional tech rails or Web 2, but feels so much easier.
I don't even think you could, because I think that, again, not to like jump in and cut you off, but like, I don't even think and you weren't going to go this direction of trying to straw man it. Go ahead.
My analog would be like Rakuten. Like I have some friends who are like Rakuten bulls, and they've made, they've got over their lifetime like a couple $1,000s back in Rakuten, which is pretty big, rebate when they're buying stuff they're already using. It's just, this is the third party loyalty program because they have a Chrome extension or something. like it's kind of been done. This just, I feel is a real enhancement. It's a scenario where blockchain tech truly enhances something that's already done in the world, makes it, I believe, exponentially better.
Yeah, I think it's like having it built on the same set of rails makes it easier, makes it better. And I think, your point about that is absolutely true. And I think like you're right, like there are things like Rakuten or like Shop Pay, which like, I don't know if anybody else has this thing. Like I use Shop Pay for like everything, and I'll get these constant reminders. It's like, remember, you have $4.37 in Shop Cash that you need to use by tomorrow. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm definitely going to forget about that. And I never actually do. And it's like, then I'm like checking out and I'm like, okay, I remember to use it. How do I even use this? Versus like, having things on the same blockchain rails. Like there's a variety of ways you can reward things that are on the same blockchain because it's a simple peek into your wallet and what do you own versus did you buy this thing with this specific app and this specific browser extension? Oh, you were on a different browser. Oh, you were on your mobile device. Oh, you were like all of those things come into play. But when you are in a, using a blockchain, I could buy something on a mobile device and then I could buy something on my friend's computer. And as long as it's connected to that chain in that identifiable wallet, it counts. So I think like those things are things that I think are like, the difference in blockchain versus this. So it doesn't have to be a crazy jackpot situation that gets people big mad who are staking, who are just basically, passively staking, Blast. It can be a variety of different ways and creative ways to reward people who are on that blockchain. And I think, Blast building this for the blockchain itself, again, this is what we talked about. Like it's really clever and not something that we've really seen before is a thing being built on a blockchain versus an actual dApp themselves and being like, yeah, we got some devs, we got some grants, we got some, we'll give you some help doing it and we'll promote it a little bit with our Twitter. But this is just a next level thing. So I think like, and by the way, not just with Battle Plan, which I know is building on Zai, and moving over there, so you can play it now if you wanted to anyway. But not just Battle Plan, but like Zed. Like imagine if you could have your 37,000 horses you have or whatever staked on the jackpot, and if Zed wins it, you get a little bit of a reward for being built on Zed because you have. At one point, I know you were like a top 5 owner of horses or something like that. Maybe you still are. Like, you would get a massive gold reward if Zed wins the jackpot once, and Zed would be like, here, there you go. Thanks for having our horses. So I think you're not crazy in that statement. I just don't know how easy it is to migrate and move over and do that.
Well, I'm near certain the reward, if it were to hit a jackpot, as you just described, would be larger than the amount of the reward like in Zed tokens I received in their native token. Like just it really, and it's not just about that. It's more of, I believe Wolfgame likely retains some of these users they pick up. Like it is a brilliant, easy. Is there a tech lift? Sure, I get it. But other than that, I need to get better numbers, so I'm speaking intelligently about this, but I have to imagine that the potential upside of the customers they could acquire, some are going to be short-term, they're only going to be there for the gold, yes, but if you have a good product and it's somewhat sticky, some of those users are going to stay. Like that's what I think, like Zed using his example, needs more than just like the opportunity to farm gold is an injection of new users. And I think what we're seeing is Blast is giving some of these, whether it's 2021 or older or 2022, it's giving them an opportunity, like an injection of fresh life, of it's like pumping oxygen into them to, are some going to, is it going to delay the inevitable for some? Sure, probably so. But I think timing is important. And some of this stuff was just too early in 2021. Some of it was like the end user experience for, in particular, on-chain gaming is light years ahead of where it was in 2021. Even the L2s it was clunky. The bridge experience was anxiety riddled. Like things have gotten so much better that I think a lot of people, if they're around and they tried something out in 2021, they're probably unlikely to go back and give it another go unless there's a reason to do so. And right now, Blast and the jackpot and the ability to farm some gold, it seems to be a pretty solid reason as to why to take a look at something like, in this case, Wolf Game.
Yeah, it does feel like it. It also feels like, though, to some degree, the way Blast incentives is like, is there someone who's going to do a more timid version of Blast that isn't quite as gambly, that doesn't have quite the same volatility to it as well, right? Because Wolf Game is particularly well positioned for Blast because I don't think that they give a crap about the gamble, right? That's part of the entirety of their value proposition is like, come here, get crazy, gamble with our, it's a very crazy gamble friendly game. So, Wolf Game makes sense in that sense. But the one thing that I have criticized, them about, and I'm not like, it is what it is. It's not like I'm, saying it's a bad, it's not necessarily that it's good or bad. It's just something that is important, I think, to acknowledge is that there is going to be large price volatility. There are people who are going to be buying things without actually caring about the underlying asset as much because they're making a move for, the reward incentives. And so for someone like a Wolf Game that makes sense, I would be curious if someone came out with something that is more, and I don't know what that looks like, but less like this, where it's like, I use the example of, our friends at the Colony, obviously love and participating in the drop, but I can't justify buying more One Piece and Pokemon cards in there. And in fact, I bought them to collect with my kids, talking to my kids about do we want to sell these and split the profit, which is nice, but also not necessarily it's not I'm not inspired to buy more of the actual product on there because other people have bought it for the incentive structure. So I just wanted to I think it's just worth pointing out, are there businesses that maybe stay away from that while a lot of crypto ones lean into it? Is there a different system that can be built that won't have the same, sort of second and third order effects? And I don't know the answer to that fully, but it's one thing to throw out there that is something we see on the platform where it's you have to be ready for these heavy pumps and heavy pullbacks if you're playing the jackpot game, which we've seen with some of the meme coins and some of the other things on there. So that would be my one sort of watch out on there. But I don't know, I agree. I think it's really interesting, and this obviously isn't the final form of it. And we have yet to see, it's fading Pac-Man has not been a winning cause in any venture yet. So yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to be keeping an eye on. So we'll be interested to see what who else goes over there. And yeah, to your point, put all my bags over there so I can just put my bags in the jackpot and call it a day.
Yeah, and I guess on that, if you're new to Blast, if you just joined, we let our friend Von Fruntendown, who recently came over, it failed to tell him to load any tokens or NFTs into your jackpot deck. Ole hit overnight, and he didn't hit on that one. So yeah, make sure you're loading up your jackpot. You have 10 slots. If you get over the 10, you can link a second wallet to make sure and transfer those assets to make sure you're in. Hey, quick reset, and then I'll let you decide which way you want to take it, Steve. I pinned up your post on the VC investment trending back up, which is hopefully a good sign. And to your point, hopefully more to come. In addition to that, it's Pizza Party Week, Global Pizza Party for the Pizza DAO. Saucy Sauce linked the globalpizzaparty.xyz link up above. It's a safe link from friends. If you're wanting to check out the Pizza DAO week, go hit the link up above and find your local where a local group will be meeting. I alluded to or mentioned the Machi post on. I'm just going to read it for those listening in. Blast delayed. My guess is Pac-Man is building out VBlast so we can vote where our ETH and stables are staked. That creates buy pressure day one of TGE from the LST stablecoin protocols, while also we would be earning bribes. This is only possible on Blast L2, the native yielding chain bullish. We will see, but my overarching point there is I do think it's highly likely that we see some form of continuation. The jackpot continues. To your point, maybe there's a point where the jackpot becomes, it's not always gold. Like today it's gold. Maybe gold runs out and the jackpot then is powered by Pew. Pew, a meme coin that launched its pre-sale, way oversubscribed, refunded. I think probably like about 90% went back, and then they took 69 hours off. I don't know when that puts us. I think tomorrow is when they're supposed to turn on trading, but I think I caught that in passing there. The idea of this jackpot, while be it third-party loyalty incentive, that's the points that leads to the native Blast token. What would prevent that from becoming another token that someone is wanting to draw attention and spread distribution? And like, I just, there's, while it may seem very simple, it's been executed well. And it's, while I wasn't a fan of incentivized bidding, I am a fan of incentivized usage and activity. And I think this is where it's not going to work for all, but for those that are building good products, I think it's a great way to attract users and sort out the sticky ones. I mentioned the Colony drop. That's at, I don't know what time that is today. Did you see?
2:00 Eastern time.
2 p.m. Eastern. If you're chasing down some Pokemon cards, I'll probably go for at least one so I can support, and it'll be my first thing on the Colony. So I've not yet made a purchase over there, but want to support the
you think it will be your first purchase on the Colony, Cap, but let me tell you, they are quick. Like, they sold out in like 4 seconds. Mrs. NFT Bark got one in the One Piece. I did not. It was only 25 on that drop, but like, I will tell you, you think you're going to get it. Just be aware, you may not. So be quick on the fingers.
Yeah, no.
24 is a math game. Anybody here played that before?
I'm not sure what that was from Chris, but I'm going to go ahead and, unless, did you bring up Chris for a reason to talk about this 24 thing, Cap? Just want to make sure I'm not,
I don't know what he's.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the other, that's the other reason, a bull market is coming back, because bull markets start coming back when we have random stage crashers who are just coming up and just yelling and trying to shill and pin things, and we need to be like extra careful about our about how we're bringing people up. So no, I think I don't even remember where we were at this point, Cap, when we brought them up, but I don't know. We can go any direction you want. We can keep going. We can keep going. Blast. I don't know. I lost my train of thought when he started going down his rabbit hole.
I'm just trying to think out what even 24 was, but that would probably further add to the confusion and loss of train of thought. Beyond the Colony at 2 today, there's a lot I feel minting. We probably overdue checking with Pawns. I don't know exact affiliation with this. They've got an Ordinals mint going on today. There's several other kind of, I'm not probably really paying attention to too many of them throughout the week, but it feels like there's a lot of somewhat new activity. The claim, the ticket claim tomorrow for Ape Fest, and then we've got Consensus next week as well. So I don't know if we want to look to have Jen or someone on later this week and talk through Consensus, if we're just going to do it live in real time. I also, as we kind of light reset here, I got to shout out Peanut. Congratulations to his Timberwolves. And I am an Ant-Man fan rooting for the last of my futures is the Wolves winning the championship. So here we go, Timberwolves. I think we're going to have Blaze on at some point this week as well. I don't know if you've seen that yet or saw what they're doing. Another L2, they're building another NFT creator launch pad that's leaning into the refundable nature of these. But like others, it's kind of like the Pac Moon model, where rewarding content creators manually, like the quality over quantity. This one is getting interesting as it's been a very large amount in some cases to just for like, Dee sent out a tweet and ended up, securing a lot of gold just for his impression. I know we've kind of went both ways on this idea of the era of the content creator. I just pinned a tweet up above I sent out over the weekend that got Blaze's attention. They got the retweet. We started talking in the DMs. They said they love the show. my question to you, have you given any more thought to, and we need to come up with a better name for it too, right? Like what is Jin doing? What is Clemente doing? I listened to his video, his live stream over the weekend too. I haven't caught many of his shows live. It was really quality content. Like he's doing a really good job. He's, we talk about how, the come up Jin has had. I think Clemente's not far behind. Would they be doing this if they weren't incentivized by Pac-Moon? Probably. Are they going to continue? Are they going to double down and do a lot more content now because of the rewards they're getting? I believe almost certainly so. What's the next evolution of this, Steve? Like, I just think that we're going to see more and more of this. Is it going to get overkill at some point? Probably. But then I think we get somewhat of I don't want to say a pullback or a correction. That doesn't sound right here the way we're talking. I just continue to see this progressing more and more so where brands are going to look to, instead of finding a content creator or like their go-to-market strategy, the traditional way, maybe it's, we're going to hit all of our press contacts, our social contacts, we'll do a press release. And while you probably still could do that in this space, I feel as if leaning into both native and third-party incentives like this and spreading the net wider, going for a larger surface area is going to be more impactful than attempting to identify a few content creators and get published in a few spots. I think that happens regardless, and potentially even faster if you get the army of content creators promoting your brand, your project, whatever you're building.
It's interesting because, like, how do you? So, first of all, let's. I want to back up. I want to understand Blaze a little bit, if you don't mind, because I'm not super familiar with Blaze as a I saw over the weekend you tagged Blaze. As I mentioned, like, was a busy weekend. I only tweeted a couple times all weekend. I'd be terrible at Fantasy Top. I only tweeted a couple times over the weekend because I have family stuff going on and some work things that I was working on. What is Blaze? Like, what was this? What happened with Blaze? It's I see you pinning to the top, like the TLDR in it. I saw some people talking about it, but I missed this one completely. Can you give me the update on this?
Yeah. So the second post is the tweet from Blaze introducing Blaze Week, a social PvP game with blast gold rewards, post content, get views, earn gold. The rules of the game are simple, and it runs from May 15th through May 23rd, so 3 days left. The rules of the game are simple: post content about Blaze or related to Blaze, get reposted by the Blaze account, earn a share of 30,000 gold prize pool based on your impressions. Visit blaze.ong/week to see what the current gold per view ratio is. So yeah, essentially, whereas Pac-Moon had you had to get a like from their account to qualify, this is a repost from the Blaze account. And right now, with like 3 days left, you're earning 0.061 gold per view. So if to put that in comparison, Steve, 0.061 gold per view. So if 100 people that are listening in now go up top and view the second link in from the inside, that would earn 6 gold. You would effectively tip us $30 by view, like if 100 people view that post. Does that make sense?
Yeah, got it. So I guess like this is interesting, and like, go ahead, Cap.
It's taking Elon's X compensation, where he's paying off impressions and views, and their main account is the QA to weed out bots, etc. And their reward, instead of paying you in fiat dollars when every couple of weeks like X pays out, here they're rewarding you in gold. Something that so basically, whereas that is actually a real hard cost for Elon, here it's simply, I guess, no more than the opportunity cost for Blaze, because they're taking their 30,000 gold that they got for building on the platform, and they're using that as effectively as their marketing budget, as their customer acquisition, as their launch, their go-to-market strategy. Instead of taking, if gold ends up being $5, that's like $150,000 that they're throwing at this, and they're choosing, instead of putting it in users. Hey, come mint on our platform and use our app. They're taking it and putting it towards content creators talking about their platform. So they basically, the TLDR, Blaze is a NFT creator launchpad, no code, simple to use NFT launchpad creator platform. You have the option of refundable NFTs, and they've effectively taken their $30,000, if we're estimating that at $5, or their 30,000 gold, which if estimates at $5 a pop come in, they're taking their $150,000 bucket of gold and using it to incentivize people to talk about their product on the timeline.
So I think I think I've formed a perspective on this. I don't know that the Pac Moon model is the answer across the board, because I think things can get old pretty quickly, right? And it's fun to have the different people coming out and creating different types of content, but I think that model can get old. I think my perspective on this is as follows, is that as a promotional early method like this, because I'm what the hell is Blaze? And you can answer my question as to what it is. And it inspires someone like me or you or other people to say, let me make a video to say, what is Blaze and what are you seeing on the timeline? And I think the scope of understanding and the ability to explain to a larger, wider audience what this is by having this incentive model early on, I think that makes sense. I think unless you have sort of a complete ecosystem that continues to grow, so this would be a good thing. I'll be honest. This is a thing. Maybe I'll DM Adam Fern or someone about this and see what they think. This would be a good idea for Pirate Nation with their booty points, because I would be much more inspired to create Pirate Nation related content if I was getting, I put it out there anyway, but I guarantee you I'd be probably spending more time filming videos if I knew that was going to ultimately, one, give me the social currency of getting the retweet from the main account and stuff like that and getting that attention. And number two, give me the opportunity to earn those points. And so I think...
And not them, but don't you think that would be far more impactful and beneficial for Pirate Nation than rewarding you for changing your Discord PFP to their... And again, not knocking that, it's something, but it just, to me, this feels like so much more of an impactful thing to use those tokens for, as opposed to what a lot of what we've seen in the past. And they're not the only ones. Hey, we'll reward you. That's good. And it's probably not an or, it's more of an and type conversation. But this piece of the and just seems like, I don't want to say a no-brainer, but what's the downside of it, Steve?
Yeah, I don't know unless there's some legalities or some things I'm not aware of, because to me, here's the way I see I'll use Pirate Nation as an example. I actually think Pirate Nation everybody does it differently. Memeland does things in their own unique way to be very silly and whimsical, and it's blatantly social farming, right? And staking their native tokens. So they have two very clear incentives with that. They're we'll get you a bunch of attention. You'll partner with our crazy rabid community, and we also want them to stake our token. Those are the advantages on both ends. 6079 is a little bit more of a social farming where they're trying to get you to learn about a product. And, even if 25% of people learn about AI and the things in their mission that they're trying to do, they consider it a win. I get that. So I think intent matters. I do think, though, both of them and Pirate Nation, and I think Pirate Nation does it tremendous by them, by the way. I think having people change their global PFP on Discord and put pirate in their name, and then they reward mostly for in-game actions, right? Where it's and they have a ton of users. I have a lot of booty points, and I'm 684 or something on the list right now. So I'm not exactly high, even though I'm pretty adamant and have been in that game pretty early. And granted, there's some boosts owning, Genesis Pirates and stuff, but it's kind of crazy to think that there's 600, almost 700 people in the world more in front of me. So I think they incentivize good things in that game as far as owning ships, owning pirates things. So I think they do a good job. But to your point, I think the and there is huge. I think the and is what you said that I would totally get on board with, which is the idea that I can tell you for a fact, I would probably have 5 Pirate Nation videos out there explaining different elements of it and be what Jen is doing for Pirate Nation if I was doing it, because I just like the game. I play it anyway.
And so that has been my point. I'm still struggling with words, how to best describe what we're seeing. I just truly believe we're in the midst of the golden era for content creators. And it's not going to work out for everyone. But I believe those that are in the quote unquote freelance type of environment and they're passionate about this space, they're putting out content, like we're not the only ones thinking like that. Like, it's just, to me, I guess that, like, I don't want to open up the legalities and that, like, you know, like there probably is some other things that we're not considering here that should be taken into consideration. But how we're seeing this executed right now, and what I think it will, like, I think like we're going to see a lot of examples. We're going to see a lot of experiments. It was Pac-Moon. Now we're seeing Blaze take a different approach. I think we're probably going to see 5 or 6 or 7 or dozens of different experiments on this type of concept. And there's probably going to be some good things out of each of them. There's probably going to be some things that aren't so great or some things not to do. And I think fast forward 6 months and it's going to look very obvious. And just like we're kind of coming to this realization right now, like, why isn't Pirate Nation doing this? Why isn't, you know, why didn't Zed Run reward their content creators with token? Like, it's so becoming so painfully obvious to me. I think it's going to be even more so after we see even a better solution be built or formulated after we see, you know, dozens of different, you know, brands experiment on ways to do this, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that kind of like comes to mind for me is like, well, one, if you have a persistent product like Pirate Nation, like there's so many types of videos I can make. I can make videos about, you know, I can make videos about like the booty points themselves. I can make videos about the battles and the gauntlets. I can make videos about how you farm. I can make videos about leveling up the quickest way. Like all these different things I can make videos about, number one. So I think with a persistent product, it makes sense. I think it makes sense for a product launch like what we see Blaze doing. The thing that I'll throw out there is like, I actually think it makes sense for another reason, which is if I'm telling my friends, like I have friends who are probably, I would call them crypto adjacent, open-minded, want to make money, want to learn, interested in the tech, maybe they play games, whatever it may be. And I've considered going to these friends and being like, here's like 5 things you could do with very minimal efforts. I'm like, set up an X account, do this, do this, do this, and you can farm, right? Like just like retweet this stuff, comment here, you're going to farm, you're going to make money, and eventually you'll get, you know, because like we take for granted, like I haven't pulled my DYM airdrop, which is like $300 because I'm lazy and it causes some bridges and all these other things. It's like, or my, not my Dimension airdrop, whatever the airdrop was I got for actually Pirate Nation and using that chain. But like, so I haven't bridged that. Like for the average person, if they get an airdrop of like $50, they're like, wait, I just played a game and did some tweets during the day while I was like at my computer, you know, pushing emails around. Like if I was in the corporate world and you told me like, yeah, you're going to be able to make a few $100 just doing this, I'd be like, dope. So I think like, one, my crypto adjacent friends would be interested in this sort of thing, especially if they're willing to sort of create written content or even, you know, if that's what they do or if they're video creators. But number two, one of the things that I think people sometimes get despondent over with these programs is how do I catch up? I'm behind. What do I do? You know, like I heard a couple people in the, you know, I'll just say, because it's been out there, they've been said on the timeline and stuff, and the notable dudes in the dudes chat where they'll be like, okay, so if I can only get more space miles for owning more doodles, like, what do I do? And like, I have people saying like, oh, Pirate Nation, there's so many booty points. Like, what do I do? Like, I can't catch up unless I go out and spend a bunch of money on pirates. And then, yes, I can play the game, but I'm already so far behind from some of these bonuses. Like, this is an answer of what you can do. This can be like, pick up a shovel, create good content, and you can catch up and pass people in points, in gold, etc. Like, that's the other thing that something like this answers is, what do you do when you're behind, when you just want to catch up? Like, how do you do that? And I think this is one of the answers is that, like, you know, and again, the great example is like people like me, you, etc. It's like, we may not have been in some of this stuff from the beginning and we're like, well, fuck it, we're never going to catch up. We have a platform, we have an opportunity to talk about things like this. It could encourage people like us to create this sort of content. So, like, I think that's the other question this answers. Like, I guess my perspective forming, as we've talked about this a few times, is number one, it's good for a launch of certain things or a persistent product because launch helps education. That's sort of the top funnel education, get people in the ecosystem, get them caring about it. 2, the persistent product, because then you have something different to talk about. Because again, I feel like Pac-Moon is getting old a little bit for me personally, but like, if there was like Zed Run did this, for example, there'd be a ton.
It's kind of wild that there's been this much content about Pac-Moon. It's a freaking meme coin, right? Like, so to you, like, we've seen this working with a freaking meme coin. You would think something that's always on game. There's going to be, it would work a lot better, right? There's just a lot more to talk. Like, I don't like. What do you talk about Pac-Moon, right? At this point, it's like, other than hype or maybe some, I guess you could do TA on a meme coin if you want. But when you're talking about the ability to create content around a game, I think the content we're seeing around Fantasy Top's a lot greater than the content we're seeing around Pac-Moon. It's just there's more to talk about. And same thing with like, this happened early on in Zed. We saw the community create a lot of organically. It fizzled, I believe, because this space, there's opportunity cost. And if you're not getting rewarded for the time you're putting in, you're going to chase something else. It's just the reality. And I believe had they had some similar incentive program in place for creators back then, maybe people don't stop. Like because it doesn't have to be the extreme examples. Like people will see how much Pac-Moon Jen has and how much money she ends up making off this. And, that's not that's like someone becoming an NFL athlete. Well, maybe, but while that may be a little more difficult, maybe you got to catch some lightning in a bottle to get to the extreme upside. Like for some of these people, if you could say, hey, you could make an extra $500 a month for creating content around a game you enjoy playing, that is what is sustainable in my opinion. Like the ability to earn, whereas like our minds are so warped, Steve. Most people pay $50, $60 to buy a video game. Here, you got rewarded $300 for playing one, and you haven't even cashed it out yet.
Yeah, that's part of it. Is I think it's like the idea like that you can reward, like it almost is like that idea of moving sort of like people who are excited about your brand into more of a super fan, right? And creating brand mascots out of them with the incentive structure that we're learning is there. And like, will it continue? Who knows, right? Like there comes a point when someone becomes so big and they're like, well, I need to make more money and I need to move this along. And like, maybe you need to bring me on officially. And so I could see a world where like, someone comes on. I mean, Dude Lifts is an interesting example where he wasn't getting paid for it, but he was making some flow content here and there, and they were just incentivizing him by, letting him hang out in the Hacker House, things like that. Homie works for Flow now. Like, he has a job. He works in crypto full-time, working for the Flow blockchain, was creating content for them, and they hired him. Like, I could see that happening with some of these things, too, where, like, if your content's so good and you're getting rewarded in the token, like, if you want to go work for them or they want to create a more official relationship and keep it consistent, I could see them doing that too, where they're like, look, sign a, letter of intent that says you're going to create or a sort of an agreement, a letter of agreement that you're going to create, one piece of content a week at the very least, since you're doing more than that anyway. And we're just going to pay you this stable number. Sometimes it's more than you would have gotten. Sometimes it's less than you would have gotten, but just like bring on. And so I could see them moving into that direction. But like your point about the people who are getting paid for playing a game, it's like, that's what it is it's like, if I'm playing this game and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm earning these points. Because I bet you people would even do this. Forget the money incentive. I bet you there's a lot of people who would do this just for like, if you told me in Fortnite that, and obviously they don't have a problem with content, so they're not going to do this, but it's like, if you told like someone in Fortnite, like, yeah, like creating content, you're going to earn a certain amount of points to get you able to buy like, or the opportunity to win one of these rare skins, like that there only be 100 of, and you get entered into this giant lottery for these things every month that have no inherent value, that can't be bought and sold. I bet you people would do it. Like, I bet you people would connect accounts and do it for the things they want to own. So I think like, and again, not doing it as like a one-off campaign, but having a persistent program that gets you in the attention cycle. Like, I think that's the difference. Like, we've seen campaigns where people are like, yeah, we're going to reward the best video for this. And there's a slew of them online and it burns hot and fast and it goes for a month and it's done. I think a persistent program where it's like once a month for the next year, again, I'm using Fortnite as an example who has no problem with content, so they don't need this, but it's like it's like if it's like once a month, Fortnite's going to be, doing 100 rare skins is going to be the main prize, but then there's going to be like, some, whatever, I forget what the Fortnite dollars are called, like, some of those and some like, if they have this level of rewards just for like people creating content who just connected an account, like one, you're going to get good data as to who your users are and what they're doing. So you're going to have a better like pin down of like who your target users are. Two, you're going to get a better idea of what people are saying about your game. Three, you might actually get ideas from the community because they start getting involved. Four, you may connect members of the community who are content creators to create things like what we've seen with Jen and Min, where like they're creating really good, actual, real content, not just like farming content, but fun stuff that's engaging to watch that you'd watch, like stuff that like if my kids understood Web3, that's the type of stuff they'd want to watch, right? Where they're talking about like which card wouldn't you buy and who are the worst people on the Pac Moon leaderboard and blah, 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 right? So you have that going on where you have content creators connecting. And so I just think that there's like something to it. I don't know what it is yet, right? I haven't like, we're kind of talking it out and I haven't quite connected it this morning, but I think there's a there, but I just don't know exactly what it is. And I think I was thinking too limited when we had this discussion initially, which was like, tweet thing, get money, like that sort of reward system I don't think can last forever, especially when you're talking about like meme coins and things. But I think like, again, like I think of the Pirate Nation booty points example, like I promise I would be creating more content on Pirate Nation if booty points were, I would be creating more content about Pirate Nation if I was earning booty points for it. I just know I would, because I'd be like, this is a good use of my time. No different than, it's a good use of my time to do loans on Liquidium because it means I'm earning points there and earning money. So I think you're onto something there, Cap.
Well, and not only good use of your time, it's something you're already doing, you're already enjoying. And it is just is going to get you to create more about the product you're enjoying. And I think that's a big difference here, where it's not just spamming timeline to farm to get paid. Rather, I think who really stands out, who really wins, are those who create content around products and protocols they enjoy. And some of it may be new. Maybe it is, a meme coin at launch. But I think we'll see an evolution here, and we'll hone in our ability to explain what's actually happening. I think this is potentially much, much, much bigger than Blast Gold. I just think this is going to be the catalyst that is I mentioned Monad in passing. I'll be shocked if they don't have some sort of similar incentive program when they launch now. And maybe the counter here is Base has done it without it. I think Base is very, very uniquely positioned, and there's only one Base. There's going to be a lot of L2s. There's only going to be one connected to Coinbase.
Do you think that these crazy farming things that we hated walked so that this better content creation system could run? Like, this social farming really started off with the annoying portal coin type stuff on the timeline, right?
Yeah, absolutely do. Like I in so much so that stuff turned me off. I don't even know if I actually muted the words. It was something I had no desire to pay attention to. But now my brain's like, why wouldn't we reach out to Blaze and have them on this show? While, by the way, some incredible meetings over the weekend. Appreciate everyone who's reached out regarding sponsorship opportunities, partnership opportunities. More coming on that soon. Pretty excited, grateful, humbled of the interest, and finalizing some details with a few different parties before making any formal announcements. But really excited about that. It's kind of ways into this conversation, Steve, is it's opened my eyes to, while I'm not into spam farming the timeline, we're talking about stuff in the space. Why wouldn't we have the Blaze team on to talk about what they're building, ask questions, and instead of them cutting us a sponsorship check, we get our share of the $150,000 by way of 30,000 gold that they're giving away. Like, what's wrong with that? Like, I can see the pushback if every day I was just spamming #Blaze or tagging Blaze on every post and just some silly meme or something underneath it. But to have a business on this show, as we've done hundreds of times, so while we have done traditional sponsorships, we have been paid traditionally in the past. We've also had some on where we've not been compensated. Sometimes it's a token or a mint. Sometimes it's just nothing, because we're genuinely curious and we want to learn. It would be good content, and it brings us new listeners. Like, what's wrong with accepting their third party incentive in this case? It's not Blaze token. It's gold that we see value in, right? It's like, why I'm trying to help myself understand why was I so, and I know the answer is because it was what started as the timeline for social farming has already so quickly evolved into what I feel is a far better mechanism, of customer acquisition, of launching, of marketing. What we're seeing today with the quality content over just spam this on your timeline as many times as you can. I still think this is still the very, very early stages, and attempting to think to connect some dots looking forward in terms of what does this really become, right? Like how does this go beyond just when a blockchain is launching? Because I used an example earlier. Well, maybe in 6 months the gold rise out and you jump over to the next chain and you spin up a carbon copy instance. I think there's more to this. I just haven't, it is hard to connect the dots looking forward, and appreciate everyone helping us talk through it here live in real time, because I'm genuinely very excited. And part of what is driving my excitement is spending more time listening to, tuning in to some of the creators like Jen, like Clemente, who have really leaned into this meta early, and find myself really enjoying their content. Like, maybe they both have just become that much better of content creators over the past few months, or maybe I just wasn't giving them enough credit previously because I wasn't paying enough attention. But both, I feel, are doing a really good job of the type of the content they're putting out there. I'm learning from it. I'm enjoying it. And then when I realize, oh my goodness, how much they're getting paid for this, it's like, where does this break?
Yeah, and when I think like the place it ultimately breaks is like, if there has to be. This is also like the classic like business conundrum, by the way, that you see with like random business people, which is like people who get upset when when I would talk to a lot of like CEOs about PR or people about PR when I was at a firm, or whether I was doing it in-house, they'd be like, well, how many insurance policies did this sell? Or, is this really effective in pushing product? And the answer is always like, yeah, I mean, it's not like someone reads story and it pushes product immediately, but there's like, positive effects to all these things. It's like part of your marketing mix. And like people always would spend more money on what's more measurable. And I think the challenge becomes that, it's one of the reasons why like people want to use like, sort of like codes like, use code whatever, CWC 48, like with the Vonga purchase or whatever it was, because that's a direct tie to a sale. Problem being like, yeah, like that works sometimes with the Instagram influencers because they link directly off of, but like, I don't know, like, as an example, like, not that they care, but like part of my Tesla decision is influenced by this show, right? Like I was already thinking about it. It's something I've thought about for a decade. It's something I've always wanted, but we have discussions with people on this show. They talk about different features. Joey Valls is giving me the lowdown on the tax incentives. We talk about, the Model Y financing that went down to 0.99. You texted me about that. Tesla has no way to track that. And that's okay. Like there's different things that go into decisions. Like I'll see things 5 times on like Instagram, Facebook, X, etc. And I'll be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to buy that. And I buy it on Amazon or whatever. They don't have attribution. Multi-touch attribution, I think to some degree, as much as we try to model it out, models for it are, I don't know. Like I hate saying this, models are effectively a myth for multi-touch attribution. And I've seen them attempt to be built. And so I think the pushback on it would be, number one, it needs to correlate to some direct sale of the product. And by that, I don't necessarily mean like it has to be tracked, because I think it's tough to track, but like that'll be a barrier I get to in a second. But I think number one, if like they're just handing out money for free content, which is awesome, like content people are putting out there, but those don't lead to direct sales, interactions, and usage. I think it does, but if it doesn't, or at least there's an initial spike, then it doesn't much after that, then you lose the incentive. So I think like if I was looking at like, I'm not saying this will happen, but I'm saying if I'm playing out in my head what you could see happening in various markets, like, like reward systems, etc. I had a comment that the price of Blast Gold going down is good because Blast Gold going down means that like the incentive structure itself is not going to outweigh the products on the platform, and there should be a normalization of price discovery there. I think the place where it's like what doesn't work is that maybe early on it works as a launch mechanism. Maybe with something like Pirate Nation, it works where booty points can arbitrarily be worth more or less depending on what they are doing with that. But I think the issue becomes at what point does like, it's like, oh my God, like these people all made six figures doing this to, okay, like the people who made six figures now would make, $4.75 doing this. Obviously an exaggeration. But I think that is where it doesn't work, is that if there isn't sell-through, number one, if they don't value this, right, which I think a lot of the Web3 attention economy does value this, but that can be fickle. And number two, and then number three would be if we start to see a normalization of money that's paid out because of those two factors, then I could see that like, being a thing where it's like, wow, that works really good and in theory early on, but by the numbers being so high early on for those early adopters and early supporters, like, am I going to create a long quality video if I end up realizing like, what, my cost per is it actually going to do well and does the timeline want to see it, which would be one question, but two, is it going to be worth my time for $4.75? So those are the pitfalls I see in the model potentially. I'm not saying that they don't go that way, but like, since we steel-manned it one way, I'm kind of straw-manning it the other direction. And if I was straw-manning it, those are three concerning factors I would throw out related to content creation. I don't know if that, if that resonates or not.
Yeah, no, it makes sense for sure. Also, shame on us. Shout out to Hizzy and all of our friends in Houston. Hope everyone is doing well down there with the power outages. Big storms hit over the weekend, and hope everyone is doing good, albeit probably a little steamy and hot without power.
How often do you find yourself in weather situations in Tampa, by the way, as a side note?
Very rarely.
Like once annually, twice annually, once every few years? Like what's rarely?
It's not even been once a year, but maybe each of the last 2 years there's been a hurricane watch or hurricane threat. And that's extremely rare for Tampa. Like the last one that touched down was like 100 years ago or something. But in the last 2 years, we've had a couple of like watches. Fortunately, they didn't hit here. But I think I saw, I'll see if I can find it recently. Someone said it's storm season in Florida, and it showed like 3 p.m. picture of like sunny skies and palm trees, 3:05 p.m. monsoon, torrential downpour, sideways rain. 3:15 p.m. it's back to the first original picture of it's sunny and clear skies and palm trees. So that's kind of like the weather we get is it'll be like really crappy for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then it's back to sunny day.
Yeah, I mean, this is way too early for this conversation, but I just find myself plotting like where am I going in 10 years if I were to move, if I don't stay put? Like, what are my plans? And I'm constantly thinking about like Texas, Florida, et cetera. I just don't know. Like Tampa's always an interesting one because I know a few people who live there seem to like it.
Do you remember Swole?
Luke? You mean Swole Luke?
I don't. Luxo bags, Swole Luxco bags.
Oh, I always thought it was Swole Luke bags. I always just pronounce it wrong, but I pronounce everything wrong. So yes, I do. I know one and the same person. Yes.
That is hilarious that you thought his name was Luke. Luxo is an actual blockchain that was early. Every once in a while you hear some people talk about it. I actually have a normie friend who's really, it's not quite like XRP, but it's people will talk about it every once in a while. It was, I think its original intent was like fashion, and still a going concern as far as I know. I don't know much about it, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what he's referencing is Swole. He must have had a big bag of that early on, but no, anyways, he's got a mint going on. I pinned it up above. Not sponsored, by the way. Neither is the Colony. Yeah, I don't know what Joey's thinking, but he's not. They've not cut us a dime yet. I kid, but not really. He sold his ape at close to the top. bought a house in Puerto Rico, and they've turned it into a duplex Airbnb type thing, but how they're essentially minting a pass for 0.1 for a 3-day stay. I've asked a few questions. I've not minted one yet, full disclosure, but I'm actually considering doing that. It's like, I mean, maybe you can get a night for like $100 a night's fare in Puerto Rico, but for a $300 weekend trip, and I can get flights to in and out of the island pretty inexpensive. So thinking about a trip to the PR, it's been on my list for quite some time, but I've yet to actually make it down there. I say that kind of tongue in cheek because, I mean, as you kind of already alluded to, we've got Consensus next week, and then I guess maybe nothing's scheduled until VFriends or VCon in August, Ape Fest in October. I feel like my travel season is about to heat up, and I don't even know why, because it's not really anything that crazy after next week, but I feel like there's a lot of potential travel coming up, and so I'm hesitant to plan anything on the personal side. Am I being weird?
No, I'm not planning anything. I have a personal side travel plan, so I'll let you know when that goes down. But there will be a time when I have like a week where I'm not going to be able to be on regularly because I'm going to be on a cruise. So I'm like, I mean, my end of the year, I think I have like 7 trips between May and the end of the year, maybe even like 8 or something. So I'm going to be moving all over the place. So no more travel scheduled whatsoever as we get that going. But no, I think you're making the right play. Yeah, interesting concept. And congrats to anybody. It's so funny. I've been calling them Swole Luke's bags because I'm LUKS. I'm like, oh, Luke's, he just spells Luke differently. That's cool. So I don't know. For me, I've just I think it's a cool concept. I'd have to look into it. And you always love seeing someone selling the ape at the top. So I'm happy for anybody who's making all that money. So cool to see that. But no, I don't know. Like I probably won't mint because I don't think I can make similarly, I don't think I can make like any major plans to go anywhere. But I'm looking through his timeline and I am definitely supremely jealous. It's a weird thought because, I have this conversation all the time where it's like, my kids don't realize how much I love them, that I'm like, and my mom and everything, that my career would be infinitely better in, Florida or Texas with the industry I'm in, but we are staying put in our location for the fam. So it's kind of how we've been approaching it. But no, it's cool. It's cool in Puerto Rico. I mean, good deal as far as the tax incentives goes, because can't beat it for that reason. I know that was the popular. I know Puerto Rico and Portugal are the popular places for people to move in the crypto space. So I don't know if I'm going either of those.
Last thing in the news here, I flew over it earlier. This Haikishi, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. It's a manga mint on Ordinals, 0.0057 Bitcoin. I don't even know what that converts to. I need to do the math. Have you followed along at all?
I've not. I didn't know about it until I saw Pons tweeting about it over the weekend. So if you missed this, I think Ordinals are really interesting. A lot of people are saying Ordinals are dead. I don't think they are. I think that there is a thriving ecosystem. There's people building. I did a interview last week with a layer 2 that's building on there. There's a lot of artists that are starting to play around on there. I think it's like toying around on the chain and figuring it out a little bit right now. It's manga, so it's not this. It's intentionally like some people are like, it's not anime. It's like, right, it's manga, which is like, sort of the anime lore that's built in, in sort of these like comic book type, graphic novel series, as I understand it. I'm not super into anime, but my son is into it. So, him and I had a debate over the Doflamingo in the manga versus Doflamingo in actual One Piece and our thoughts on that at one point. So it's a manga based mint. I am not on the allow list. I don't know how he got in the allow list. I wasn't paying as close attention as I probably should have, but I don't know. Max Mint is 2. Ordinals tend to cook after mint, so there's a good chance I will mint this. It sounds like they're building some lore. They're trying to build a story around something, which, by the way, if you're not familiar, actually just to give some background, and somebody will absolutely check me on this. So if there's an anime person in the audience, feel free to tell me I'm a moron. But the manga often precedes the actual sort of lore, or at least builds out the lore a little bit more. And one of the critiques of Azuki was, why not build a manga first and then have the Azuki anime come after that? And they had some pretty good answers for that when we had some of the team members and folks on the show to talk about it. And so there is a question here where it's like, if they are doing a manga basement, are they going to build lore around that? And then are they going to then build a show after that? That'll be interesting to follow, but it's one that I'm paying attention on. I see we got Janner in the chat. I got to read through his thread there with some speculation on it because he's already been looking at it, and it looks like maybe he's thinking it might be tied. Is that to Anime Coin potentially? I don't know, or is there a Manga Coin? I don't know. If Janner's able to come up and give us some thoughts on it, I'd love to hear him. But if not, that is one that I'm probably planning to mint. I'll probably mint a couple. I'll probably try to flip at least one if they cook a little bit. But always support anything Pons is doing if they make it out of allow list, which I believe 11:15 is the mint time for that for non-allow list people. And if there's a way to get in the allow list, this is once again me fading free money probably as I went through it. So I don't know. I'm guessing you haven't followed much along with this one.
No, I should have. I mean, it's not like I'm not into that world. No, but I should have. I mean, the art looks good, and especially as it relates to Ordinal's art, like pretty solid. And I should have at least reached out to Pons and figured out what exactly is his involvement. Diabolito says that it is a, and how do you say it? Hikashi? How would you pronounce it? Hikashi?
I would say Hakeshi, but I am probably wrong.
It's actually an in real life business in Japan, clothing and such. So, existing Web 2-ish business brand entering Web 3 by way of an Ordinals mint.
There you go. I don't know. I mean, it's one that, like, I think with mints going, that's one that I'm interested in seeing. You know, that one because I saw it, I caught it over the weekend. I realized I wasn't eligible for the allow list, down horrendously, and so I'm gonna probably go ahead and try to mint if I can and pay attention to that one. So I saw that one too. That one was on my short list as well. As to what they are, it sounds like they're trying to build out some serious stuff there. And then I put this at the beginning, but are you at all? Have you played it all on Memeland and Stakeland, or are you completely out on that?
Very little. I have it's minute. Whatever I participate early, have some stakes, but I've not been active, and I have very, very small bag.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, did you get the last drop, or did you not get the last drop?
I didn't do anything. So if I was supposed to claim, is stakelane.com?
Well, I mean, you may just did you didn't enter an Ordinal wallet at any point, did you?
No, I did. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, well, then you should have some Rune Coin. Not a lot, but a little bit of Rune Coin at least. If you stake, because no matter what, everybody got a little bit of Rune Coin distribution. So you definitely have some Rune. You're a big Rune guy now, Cap.
Hey, maybe. I have. I guess where would have I added my my Ordinals wallet at?
Well, you already would have added it when it asked you to at some point. That was part of like the thing that got you some extra stakes. And if you haven't, log in your Ordinals wallet, go to Magic Eden, go to Runes, go to Portfolio, and see if you're sitting on some RSIC. You probably are sitting on some Rune Coin based on that. But for people who aren't aware of like what Memeland, Stakeland is, effectively, Meme is the native meme token, is the native token that you get from Memeland. Everything about the white paper, everything about it is like silly and fun and interesting in how they approached it, as you would expect from Ray and what they do over there. And what they did was they're like, what do we do for meme utility? So what they do is they have this thing called Stakeland. Stakeland is where you stake, you put your, it is not soft staking. Like say with Blast, for example, you bridge money over to Blast, and by stake, it's like a soft staking mechanism. It's sitting in there, but you can still move it in and out without taking it in and out of a contract. You just sort of swap it. With Memeland, it is a straight staking contract where I will have, let's say, 100 meme in my wallet, 100 meme coin, right? And I will take that and I will send it to a staking contract, and that will help me start earning stakes at an exponential rate. They're actual physical stakes, like the steak you eat. They're having fun with it that way. At the end of each sort of one of these Stakeland scenarios, they also have social farming activity. So last time it was based with, sort of the number one or one of the top runes that came out when the rune meta was going big, which was RuneCoin, RSIC. And you would stake stakes, and then you would tweet things. They gave you a certain amount of stakes for following RuneCoin, a certain amount of stakes for tweeting about it, a certain amount of et cetera, et cetera. And each one of those, you would claim your stakes. They have a cute animation that goes along with it. Then came sort of the game theory. At the end of this whole scenario, you got to pick how many of your stakes, I believe up to 90% or 80%, I can't remember the number, stakes you wanted to burn. So the whole time, remember, you're tweeting and earning these stakes. When you stake your meme coin, you earn stakes continuously. It's sort of just this running clock where you're earning like more stakes per hour based on how much you've staked. So, and each meme coin individually counts as a stake too. However, when you remove your meme coin, you lose a stake. So if you stake 100 meme coin and you have 200 stakes, you'll keep earning them every hour, but then when you pull it out, you lose those 100 stakes. So at the end of this thing, you have this giant pile of stakes, which is your meme, basically think of this like your booty points in Pirate Nation. Think of this like whatever it may be. This is your points on Liquidium. You have earned these things. You were able to spend up to 80% of them, and whatever amount you put in, they had a distribution of RuneCoin, and your amount of stakes were going to correlate to how much RuneCoin you got dropped. So obviously, if someone stakes 100,000 or 1,000 meme coin, let's say, they're going to get 10 times more RuneCoin than I get when I stake 100. So like basically based on how much you stake, what social activities you do, you earn different amounts, and then they have a distribution. So right now they're doing the same thing with Mon from Pixelon, where you go onto the site, you have it staked. So like Cap, if you have meme coin, you should stake it on the Stakeland site. There's no downside to doing that unless you plan to sell it tomorrow. It goes to the staking contract. You follow a few things to earn a few more stakes, and you're off and running. At the end of this season, you'll decide how many stakes you want to burn. So as a game theory thing, for example, last time, Riggs went to the lowest possible percentage of stakes to burn because he didn't want to get the RuneCoin distribution. He wanted to save it for future distributions. So now he has more stakes going into this season because he burned less. I burned the max amount. I got as much RuneCoin as I could, wanted to go through the process. So either way, like the point is, it's a fun game, like or a fun little like farming mechanism that's kind of cute, button pushing, social farming, staking, that ultimately earns you a token that you use to get other things. So they're doing partnerships. They think of them as like just doing partnerships with all these other brands in the space.
I mean, are they not like what they did with Pixelmon? Is that not very similar, if not almost this, they don't have the jackpot, but is this not very similar to what we've been talking about with Blast, right? Is Memeland and Stakeland not creating their own third-party loyalty rewards incentive program system here, right?
I think it's similar, but not as sophisticated, to your point. But you keep going. Sorry.
No, that's it. It's a different spin, a different take on it. And, we need to also give credit where it's due, right? Because, you've been holding meme longer than I have, deeper in the ecosystem. We're both a big fan of Ray. It wasn't Block or Portal. It was really Meme Coin that kicked off this social farming meta, no?
I can't remember. I think it might have been Portal Coin, but I can't remember if it was Meme. It might have been Memeland. I can't remember if it was Memeland, Portal Coin, or I think it was either Meme Coin or Portal Coin. I don't remember which came first, the chicken or the egg, but I do think that
either way, they've been at it for a while, right? It was pretty close, if not. They certainly launched prior to Blast and this idea of this third-party loyalty program, and it's maybe in the beginning we thought it was just going to be meme and Memeland associated stuff. Very obvious and clear now that it's much bigger play. Pokemon isn't it's not only the first. I can't remember who was their earlier. Oh, it was RuneCoin. Yeah, you just said it. So it's like this is another way, another spin on this idea of third party loyalty incentive programs. And I think one of the other, fast forward, this is people are going to take, okay, what did Memeland do great and what worked really well? What was some of the constructive feedback? What didn't work great? What did Blast do really well? And then what didn't work well? And looking at all these are all experiments, but I feel as if we're having each one stack upon those that came before it, right? I feel as if, it's not to keep going back to it, it's just a very easy example because PackMoon did the social farming far better than did Block or Portal, in my opinion, in perspective, in terms of leveraging their token to actually get real quality content on the timeline. I feel as if Memeland's kind of been almost in between, whereas I know they rewarded the social post, but I don't remember ever seeing any like the content like we're seeing from Jen or Clemente or others, where it's like, oh wow, this is really high quality content around meme land, and that creator is probably going to get rewarded with a bag full of meme for doing so.
Yeah, it's definitely a different like type experiment, but I also think like Ray cares about virality, right? Like Ray doesn't care about like Ray's like not, I don't think apologetic about, okay, people are spamming the timeline. I think what Ray looks at, like, let me give you an example, like Cap, how familiar are you with the Pixelmon universe?
I mean, I know Kevin, that's about it. And I know they put a lot of, the comeback is real. I mean, they've got a real team and still have a war chest of funds, but yeah, I know very little.
Exactly the same. So I know they've been on Modern Market. I know they've been building. I've heard people talking about them building. I know for people saying like, hey, Pixelmon's got a big comeback. What I know about Pixelmon is Kevin. I see Kevin at events. I know Kevin was a funny meme. I think Kevin is a great mascot, and they've rallied behind that character, and they're creating more. They're talking about building like the Nintendo of blockchain, all these other things. But I haven't really found out about it. What's happening now is I'm going to probably learn what, even if I am just simply social farming, by accident, I am going to learn about Pixelmon. Like I'm going to learn all about Pixelmon. And I'm going to learn about what the Mon token is. And I'm going to do all these things because I'm participating in this game. And to your point, that is what makes this interesting. Ray has attention. He's got a great holder base. He's got a token that people are excited about. Like when we talk about meme tokens, it's so interesting that meme coin never like gets brought up as one that could be, a big winner. It's called meme token. It's made by the person who has 9gag is like literally, it's like 9gag and Imager are like the two things I follow on Instagram. And it's like basically my entire feed because my entire feed is like memes that like a 12-year-old boy would think are hilarious, right? That's my entire feed on Instagram. I've curated it well. I am targeted very hard though. When I go to the search function, it's all thirst traps. Not a thirst trap searcher, but it targets me because it knows my age. It knows I'm a man. It's bullshit, Cap.
You know what I'm getting targeted with now? This is sad. I made the mistake of watching some, I don't even know what it's called. It's like some little hook thing that is a way to like stretch your hip flexor out or something. And I watched one little short video. And now if I go on Instagram, if I go on Facebook, I'm being targeted by every single that multiple times. They're retargeting me. Every one of their competitors is retargeting me. Every chiropractic place, and I like Instagram, my social graph now. They think I'm an old man that is completely falling apart. I'm not mobile at all, and I'm probably going to start getting ads for like hip replacement surgery here soon.
I probably need to get the ads you're getting, man, because I am falling apart. I'm trying to make some changes about that, but I think I probably need to get the ads you're getting. But
I guess seriousness, this is it, right? Like this is exactly what we've talked about. It's working on us. Not only are you going to go learn more about Pixelmon, it's going to get me to learn more about Pixelmon and get more vested in meme land. I'm going to, because there's now, I can kind of double dip the incentive. I've got a few stakes on there. I'm going to pay more attention to meme land now because they're participating in this third party loyalty world. Like it's just like it's working on us. And either we are just two mid-curve, like easy targets, or this type of third-party loyalty really has some legs.
Yeah, I mean, like I've gotten to the point where it's like I wasn't super into it. Meme coin has traded up, down, and all around like that, like 2.5 cent mark for like a very long time. It's been as high as like, I think like 5 cents, like double this. And, I'm sure it's been lower. I'd have to look, but I think like, I don't think it's dipped much below like the 2 cent mark. So it's between like basically 2 and 2.5 cents has been a pretty consistent price that it's been going. And every time it dips, I've been buying more meme just because I'm like, it's free money on Stakeland. Like it's not like free money, but if meme coin does hold value or even goes up, let's say meme land has the chance to get to like, I don't know, like 10 cents or something. It's like, that's a 5x from here. It's like, that's that would be a massive win for me all along the way while I'm farming free money, while they're trying to push it. It's like, it takes one amazing incentive. And by the way, each time they do this, again, like Meme Land, if they're smart, which I'm sure they are because Ray's been doing this for years, Meme Land ran that Rune campaign for RASC for RuneCoin. Like, they're going to be able to look at that, get all of that data, send that to another partner, take the data from the Pixelmon partnership, send that to another partner and be like, hey, we should work together. And it's only a matter of time before it's like, oh, you know what? Like, let's work with ApeChain, right? Like, raising that ecosystem. Like, what's to say that, you know, whatever they're working with, you know, with the couple different chains, that the farming one that Garga announced in the other side meta, as well as like ApeChain, like, what's to say that Ray's not like, yeah, like, we're going to do a stake situation for that. Like, so I just think, like, for me, I'm probably going to continue to cash out max and then just put more stakes, but it's like, there's a cash out. And last time there was a cash out, meme dumped. I bought more meme, just a little bit here and there with some ETH. I can always swap it back. But, you know, I've got a decent amount of meme on there, just like sitting around. And I'm playing that game. And by the way, I'm also up on meme coin where I bought it when my bag more than doubled. I sold my initial investment. And while I've bought more since when it's gone on the dip, it's like I'm up on that investment. So it's like I'm sitting here with this game where it's like, all right, I have this token. I stake this token. This token gets me other little payments. It's almost like, in a weird way, this is like a mini Bored Ape situation where by me owning Meme Land and staking it and now taking some social actions and learning about some stuff, it's like, you know, remember when people were like, well, why would someone own a 6-figure monkey picture? It's like, well, they got a 5-figure drop of a mutant, a 5-figure drop of a dog, a 6-figure drop of ApeCoin. And you start doing the math and you're like I remember when this case study initially was being taught, and I spoke at Harvard with some other people from Web3. And one of the things that one of the students put together, they're like, well, the reason people are holding it is because, like, here's 5 things they've gotten, which maybe don't pay the entire price of the asset, but they still hold the asset and they get those things. It's like with Meme Land, I hold meme coin, I stake it, I take a couple social actions, I got the Rune coin yet? It was like, I don't know, like $100 worth of Rune coin or something. So it's not like this massive amount, but it's like, that's a pretty good interest rate on $1,000 worth of meme coin or something, right? It's like I got like a 10% interest rate over like 3 months basically for holding it. And then like with the Mon, it's like the next drop that comes, like let's say I get $200 worth of Mon. It's like, all right, well, we're getting pretty close to like my actual initial investment here just by existing. And so I think like that's what, and like each time Ray gets another case study to say, this is what we did for RuneCoin, this is what we did for Pixelmon, like let's partner with another big one. So like it's not going to surprise me. Like the only thing I need to decide is, do I want to like max cash my stakes every time, try to maximize my money and just put more money in? Or do I want to keep stacking so that when like something that I'm really excited comes along, I get a larger allocation? Because the allocation you get is based on the percentage of everyone's stakes. So anyway, long story short, like I think anybody from like a whale to a guppy, you know, a whale to a guppy to a shrimp to a dolphin can participate in this sort of thing. So I think Cap, like you should definitely, I mean, after the show, if you're not, you should go to Stakeland, make sure that all your meme is staked, and, you know, basically take like the 4 actions, which are like follow these X accounts, and then you're off and running.
Yeah, I did that. I earned my extra stake. I did not submit my Ordinals wallet in time, so I missed out on that, unfortunately. And it wasn't a huge amount, but I apparently had at some point I earned some actual meme I could have claimed. It was like 1,500 meme. So like 10 cents I could stomach, but if it goes to $10, I'll probably be pretty down bad on my failure to claim that meme in time because it's expired now. So yeah, I have been participating, albeit not paying attention nearly enough. And I think the bigger impact here is more than you can stake and claim. It's the collaboration, the partnering with other Web3 natives, and doubling, tripling sometimes incentive rewards. I get that it's a tactic, and you still need more than vaporware to build something sustainable and long term. I just, for those that aren't leaning into this right now, that are in the space and they're struggling to find daily active users or struggling to find momentum or attention, it's not just Blast, right? It's not just Meme Land. There's those are 2 opportunities right now that if I'm in that position and I've got a an on-chain game and I'm floundering, we're losing users, I need to find more. Those are the first two I'm reaching out to. Hey, is there anything we could do to collaborate together and work together? Like, love what you're doing, and selfishly, I want to drift off the attention you're getting.
I'm actually surprised. I'd be surprised if, honestly, now that you're even saying it out loud, knowing how smart Ray and that team are, and how much, by the way, Sam, NFT Stats on that team is like a big participant in like the Blast ecosystem. I'd kind of be surprised if they didn't have some sort of a social meme land based mechanism similar to what we're seeing with sort of Pac-Moon and everything next time for whatever their next partner is, if they haven't built it already, because it feels like there's an opportunity there for them to do even better for their partners. Or maybe they save that for like a partner, not to say Pixelmon isn't that partner, but like, is there like a Web 2 partner or some mega thing to win that like could turn into that? I don't know. But yeah, like I just kind of like observe that. And I think you're right. Like there's got to be a product. It's got to be sustainable. And like, maybe it's a matter of like, again, like I'm just kind of like spitballing, like maybe on one side of the coin, there's these passive opportunities. And on the other side of the coin, there's active opportunities that are both in the same ecosystem. But like, how do I say this? Like for Memeland, for example, maybe you're able to do the retweets, the likes, the follows, and stake meme, and that's passive, right? Like I have my passive ones. I have Grass running. I have, Memeland. I have 6079 kind of passive, right, with that stuff. And I'm working in all those, and then Pirate Nation is more active, but I actually enjoy playing that game. But maybe there's that. And then maybe there's active ones in the same ecosystems where it's like, yeah, content creators are going to be rewarded, but it's not like, like being at the top matters, but there's like, if someone's like, hey, I want to create content about this because I want experience doing it, and I'm going to get paid like, $30 a month to do it. They're like, why not? Like, it's not a bad opportunity for me. So like, maybe both continue to exist, but I think you're right. Like, I think it's like understanding, like, I have a tab on my, or a bookmark folder that is farming opportunities that I'm sitting there with Blast, Memeland, Grass, 6079, like all my different farming opportunities where, I'm just checking them on a daily basis, every, few hours just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Cause it's just, again, it's, B-Check had this comment this morning that was funny where he was like, not that he's like rich, but he's like, do I need to keep doing this stuff? Am I getting apathetic? Like, but like, then there's, and like, do I want to keep farming? Do I need more money? Is it worth the hassle? But then on the flip side, there's what you say, which I tend to lean on the side of, which is it's free money. I'm not going to turn my nose up at free money if it requires low effort. And I think there still are those chances to kind of capitalize that way. So I think I'm sort of in between there. Like, I'm not going to participate in a farming effort that requires a tremendous amount of work and makes me do a bunch of crazy things. Like, I'm not going to participate in all that stuff, but I am going to participate in, the passive ones for sure, and the active ones that make sense for me.
Well, and where I, like, for me, everyone's different, but for me, Steve, I will participate more. Like if it's, follow this account, like I just did whatever, and I got 5,000 stakes for just following some accounts on Instagram or on X, and I was already following, I think 2 or 3 of them anyways. But for me, I'm far more inclined to put in medium effort or even high effort to create an actual real piece of content than I am to do farming effort that's just spam, right? Like I'm not interested in just retweeting this canned post that you created for me. In fact, this is a little hack. Most of these, now there are some that actually verify the tweet. A lot of these, it's just a step in the process. So it'll say like, post this on your timeline to claim, and you hit post and it pops up or takes you to Twitter in a new tab. You don't have to post it often. You can just go back and hit claim. There are some of them that are actually,
or you post, delete, hit claim and delete.
Yeah, exactly. There are some that are verifying. So if it's verifying post, make sure you verify it first, and then you can delete it. But a lot of them, you don't even have to actually post it. You can just click the button to post it, not actually hit send, go back to the site, and it'll let you claim. I don't know why I got off on that tangent, or where was I going?
Well, I mean, I think you were saying you're more inclined. You're saying you're more. Go ahead.
So I'm not inclined to do those. Like, hey, send this spammy post out that you've seen from 70,000 other people on the timeline today. Not my journey. I'd much rather put in a medium effort to whether it's a post. I really am strongly considering doing more video. I just need to do it. I just need to jump in and get started. Once I get started, I can see myself putting out a quick video almost daily. It's just I haven't made that leap to make it part of my daily routine. I'm much more inclined to do so now because there's so many opportunities to get rewarded for putting that content out. Maybe some of them I get, 10 meme coin and it's less than a penny. Or I guess it'd be, you said 2 cents. So it's 20 cents. And maybe in other cases, it's something that catches on, it hits viral and I get rewarded, 1,000 gold that turns into $5,000. I think both of those are in the range of outcomes. The most likely outcome is probably somewhere in the middle, closer to the 20 cents than the $5,000. But that's just kind of where I'm at. Can I, even if it doesn't go viral, if I don't, get paid what I think I'm worth for it, I'd rather just the opportunity for that, right? Like I'm not just relying on X bucks to get to monetize content I'm putting out on this platform. And I don't know. I think that's where I'm at is them rewarding quality over quantity has me much more interested in participating in creating content for all these they're going that route.
Well, and not just that, I think there's a point where, there might be discoverability that happens because of this, where it's I'm one, and again, I know that maybe this isn't unique, maybe this is unique, I don't know. I am one who tries to make the effort to put out the things that I truly enjoy and want to talk about, regardless of if they get 1 million views. Right now, I'm very excited about the regulatory environment kicking up and big money coming in and the things that are going through Congress to potentially help move the space forward. And that is not the sexiest thing on the timeline. So those tweets, I'll put effort into summarizing a bunch of stuff and it'll do far less views than somebody who's in Fantasy Top who just tweets GM, right? Because there's different incentives there. But I'm somebody who is one who wants to talk about the things that I want to talk about. And I'm going to continue to approach my content accordingly. And so because of that, I do think there's an opportunity for me to be okay, if I'm happen to be talking about Pac Moon, it's not in the scope of things I would normally talk about, then I'll just tag Pac Moon and maybe I'll get a little bit of a distribution here. And that's nice. And to your point, just a little bit of an incentive for doing so. And then there will be people like Jen and, who use the example, Dude Lifts, etc., D's, whoever, who puts out content about it. And they're like, you know what, this does feel like something that's, noteworthy or worthwhile to me. I'm going to keep doing this. And I think there is this second and third order effect of the ability to find the place that you want to be playing around in because of this initial, hey, I was initially farming, but then I found out I really actually enjoyed this content, right? Dude Lifts was initially, I think, talking about flow and stuff because, yes, he likes the blockchain, but Doodles is on there and he's a big Doodles guy. And, then he learned a little more. He Top Shot. He likes Disney and stuff. He's just tweeting about it. They hired him. And it's I don't know that he was trying to get a job when he started creating the content. It's this is the ecosystem I like to participate in. Oh, it led to something. So I can see that happening. I will say this. The other thing I'll say, I've never seen, this is your SOAS or whatever it is. I get these things too, where they're stab yourself where I got a sports hernia a few years ago, and that's going to solve all your back problems. I'm I'm just going to try stretching. So I've seen these. It's they talk about your SOAS or something. There's I think fake Joe Rogan ads for it where they use AI, where they make it seem like him and Brendan Schaub are talking about this thing.
In every one I've seen, it's worded almost identical. It's a different person, and it says I created this tool that solved all I think I've seen a dozen different people with a slightly different ad copy that takes claim for creating this tool that clearly it's something now you could probably go buy them on Alibaba for $1.70 and they're all just selling the same tool and creating different video. I mean, on the topic, to tie it all together, so it's not just purely nonsense, that is Web 2 product marketing. We've been talking about Web 3 product marketing all morning, and I think many, myself included, have been slow to grasp or fully understand products in this space, and that not all products here are going to look the same as this plastic tool that a lot of people are taking credit for. You know, a meme coin is a product, and the way people, like some of those content we're seeing on these hip tool, maybe it's the creator, maybe they're creating their own content. Often it's probably a brand paying people to film and create content up front before there's any results, before there's any, you know, is it worth it or not? In this world, it is like pay for play. It's like pay for performance. The better your content does, the bigger your reward. And in some cases, these brands are able to give that reward, and it's not even, it's zero impact to their P&L because it's a third party incentive. I don't know if it's has been an enjoyable conversation for others listening. I think you're getting a glimpse of Steve and I talking through some stuff, getting kind of behind the scenes to some degree as you talked earlier about sponsors specifically for this show. This is much bigger than that in the sense of, and I actually, but how it ties in is it's like it has created a world of non-exclusivity, right? It's like we can have sponsors on this show and we can talk about something, a competitor on the timeline in most cases. Now, is there ever a world where we enter into an exclusive relationship with someone? Sure. But for majority of the time, we're going to be hesitant or resistant to anything like that because we don't want any sponsor to dictate what we talk about on the show or how we might talk about something. I believe this, I guess that here's the downside, Steve, is without proper checks for quality assurance, there is a scenario where a brand is paying for impressions for content on their product that is a 1-star review, that's negative content, right? Like if they have the brand's probably not going to retweet something like that about themselves if that's their check. They're probably not going to like it if that's their check. But if it's, think about some of these early iterations of this where there was no quality assurance check, there likely was, brands that paid out tokens to individuals who were trolling or dunking on or creating bad content, negative content around said brand. We haven't really hit on that side, and that's what presumably PacMoon and Blaze and others have they mitigate with this quality assurance check. I also think where my brain goes, and maybe we start to land the plane with this thought, tremendous opportunity here for some tooling and software, something built by AI or AI powered that is going to do that quality assurance check. So it's not the intern at Blaze that's looking at every tweet that mentions them. It's not the intern at PacMoon that's seeing, okay, do we like this tweet or not? Something that's smart and learns, but it's like the tech is there. I'm near certain of it. Someone connects those dots and you probably get a lot of clients, not just in Web3. For right now, it'd be primarily a crypto native consumer base, but I think this has legs to transcend crypto and Web3. And if it does, then your addressable market becomes all B2B almost. Anyone building brands or products.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good thought. And like, I think one other thing I'll say, like, as we sort of close things down here, I think good discussion overall this morning, content creation, nice discussion about some things that are going on the timeline. As, by the way, realized I was out of hot dog buns. I made a sort of jalapeno sausage for myself this morning, and I'm now cutting it up to put it on a hamburger bun because I'm out of hot dog buns. So kind of a weird move, but it works. Done it before. The idea that I'll end it with this. I'm going to hand up and say, not that I was wrong about what it did, but I wasn't thinking about the implications down the line of what sort of this early Portal coin, meme coin farming was when it was just like spamming the timeline. Because I didn't complain about it. I said, have your fun, and I muted it. Because I'm not going to yuck someone else's yum unless it's like hurting someone else or it's like silly or whatever. I'm going to give opinions like we talk about it on the show. Like, we have different discussions about Fantasy Top, and you and Shane and Phonics will give me one side. I'll take the other side. But it's respectful. It's all cool, right? I think with which we didn't even talk about the developments in the war room over the weekend. No need to, but that was an interesting one. But I think when it comes to like stuff like this, like hand up on the fact that I was critical of that, like in private and not like, but again, not to yuck someone's young. It just internally, it felt scammy. It felt gross. It's like this meta can't last. It's getting old to me. Flash forward to now, if we didn't have those sort of frustrating, sort of like flash in the pan type things, we wouldn't be here with content creators who are creating great content being rewarded for it. So I'm grateful to like watch the iteration of that. And we'll be curious to see where it goes, to your point, because I think more this morning than previous discussions we've had, because we've talked about this, I think you convinced me a little bit more that there is a there for whatever this is, more than I thought in the past, based on like very linear looking at it the way it is now versus the way it can be. And I find it interesting. And I think, again, like I'll give another example. If Delta gave me Sky Miles for creating about Delta, I'd be more likely to create about Delta. Period, point blank, full stop. Now, I don't know if they have to write a whole legal thing around the costs and money associated with that, etc. But like, I would create more content. So like, I think your point that you're making as far as like towards the brands people have time to engage with, you know, I think there's an opportunity there. So I like the thinking this morning, Cap. And I think it's convinced me a little more. Any parting thoughts before I eat my sausage and drink my green juice this morning?
Enjoy that. I agree with you and good call out that, you know, you might have a portion of a future book here, because I think you fast forward 5 years, 10 years, and this plays out like I think it can in like the best case scenario. Maybe someone looks back at like Pac Moon and that is a catalyst or a breakout moment. I think very few go back and connect the dot to block or portal farming, because it was really kind of like an ick farm. It just, again, to each their own. Go get paid, go do your thing. It was something I had personally near zero desire to actively participate in. Whereas I find myself now a little bit of FOMO for not participating in the Pac Moon stuff earlier. And not even that, probably more importantly, how do I position myself to create more content to participate in this opportunity that I think is really just beginning, right? It's like we've already seen great iterations from where we were portal to block to where we are now. I think it's going to continue to get better. I think we're going to see more participants in it. And here's the other thing. I'll leave you with this thought. Candidly, I have not been excited about Ape Chain. It's been, okay, it's coming, it's necessity, but whatever. I've not, as far as beyond like something that's out in the future, like is it a necessity for other side and things, all things gaming? Yeah, but it's also, if done well, it's like I don't even really think about it. It's just there in the background. I've went a 180, and that's where my brain is growing with excitement day over day. Is I think the timing is almost optimal for them, as if they would have done this a year ago, they were too early. They wouldn't have had the knowledge, the information. We wouldn't know what we know now. Maybe they knock it out of the park and it's just, they run pure and everything hits. I think now we've seen so many models, so many new chains, layer twos launch and lean into this loyalty, this incentive structure. There's a lot that not only do I think they can replicate, I know they will, because it's not just Yuga, right? There's going to be a lot of other builders on this chain. Some I'm already talking to in the DMs that have already built some pretty cool stuff. I'm sure we'll have them on the show here at some point. But it's for the first time here, just in the last few weeks, this kind of light bulb, this aha moments went off, Steve. And I've gotten very excited about the opportunities that will come with Ape Chain for not just farming, but more so for content creators. I think individuals like us are going to be positioned well to capitalize on that opportunity. And it's something that, while I said I haven't been excited about it in the past because I wasn't interested in just, spammy farming, I think now there's going to be more and more opportunities to get rewarded for putting out high quality content. And I think that's one that's, with both of us as close as we are to that ecosystem, I think it could be, potentially another floodgate of opportunities. And too late for any of this stuff. Not for Meme Land. Like I'm as late as anyone on Meme Land. I've just got some staked. I don't believe I'm too late. I think there's still opportunity to get involved now. I don't think anyone's too late to get started in Blast. I don't think anyone, if you don't hold any Yuga assets, I don't think you're too late to participate in what's coming up on Ape Chain. I think pay attention. And when you start seeing the groundswell of devs and activity and liquidity and volume, know that I think going forward, they're going to serve as almost somewhat of a magnet, right? They're going to attract others because of this idea of we talk about building in public and collaboration in this, that we're actually seeing it in real time, live, and we're in a position to benefit and often from not just one, but both parties.
Sorry, you caught me taking a sip of my green juice. Yeah, no, I would fully agree, man. I mean, I think when I hear you say that, it gets me excited, assuming they take this approach, which I hope they do. To your point, like, this is something that we would talk about, that we are genuinely interested in as participants in this ecosystem. So it's not like some disingenuous farming post where we would be covering friends who are building there and people we find interesting and businesses we find interesting and potentially being compensated in that way for it, instead of having to go to ApeChain and being like, what's your marketing budget? How much you have allocated for this? Oh, can you spend it on this? Let's negotiate a rate. It's like, nope, we just create content and be really good. And I wonder, if a second and third order effect here is we start to see great content creators that are rising to the top and coming out of Web3 stronger. And do we have a stronger set of content creators that reaches a wider audience because of it, right? Like, is that what we see coming out of this thing? Because I do think, like, again, like I was listening to like a Tony Robbins interview on Theo Von's podcast. And I love Tony Robbins. I love Theo Von. I think Theo Von's vulnerability and like I associate with a lot of the issues he talks about on it. And he was talking about one about self-worth. Tony Robbins was asking him about it. And, Tony Robbins had this comment about like, sort of this like, sort of obvious comment to some degree about like, the things that happen to you shape you, and those have effects that sometimes have really, really good outcomes, which is how I always approach life. Like, Miss NFT Bark and I had something, I won't get into it over the weekend, not between each other, but she got frustrated with something from an external factor. But that external thing helped us notice something that could have literally cost us thousands of dollars if we didn't notice. She was annoyed because the person who was supposed to let us know about this thing in our house that would have been wrong wasn't really communicative about it. But to me, I was like, well, he told us to check this. Then we realized this was an issue and we fixed it this way. Otherwise, we never would have fixed it. And she's like, yeah, you're kind of right. Second and third order effects matter. And I think like Tony Robbins had this example where, he's fed like, I don't know, something like 1 billion families, some ridiculous number of families. And he made this comment where he's like, I didn't have the best mother. He's talked about it. His mother was, to some degree, horrendous to him growing up in many ways. And one of the things they couldn't do was they were having trouble eating. And he's like, I had this really tough childhood and someone came along, gave us $20 and we were able to eat. And I thought that day I would make it my mission to make sure everybody else can have that same experience that my mother and I had. And I want to provide it to them by feeding them. And he's like, if I had the childhood I wanted, if I had the mother I wanted, I wouldn't be here. He's like, and I wouldn't be feeding these families, because why would I have motivation to feed millions of families if I never went through that experience of what that was? And it sounds crazy to say, but he's like, part of it is like taking your trauma and repositioning it, or taking your issues and repositioning it. And I think to some degree, like to make an analogy, I was so frustrated with like muting Portal Coin and seeing those things in the timeline, but like, this is where I always talk about like it was an area where I always try to look down. I mean, I wrote an entire book about it, look down as to what the effects of these things are. Like, how does staking apply to real life? How does the utility offerings apply to real life? All those different things. And like when I say real life, I mean life outside of the crypto space. And I think your point about the content creation is, we all saw Portal Coin and get frustrated. People muted it. Some participated. We may look down the line and in 3 years have a group of robust Web3 content creators that rose to the top because of the incentives that came out of that. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I started thinking of those second and third order effects, and I just maybe didn't take it as seriously.
Yeah, same. No, I'm right there with you. we're definitely not late to take advantage of it now. And it's certainly, I don't believe in its in-state final form. Last thing I will add, since you're talking, you said mother and lessons, and I wasn't going to go there. I didn't want to get emotional on the show. My father passed away 20 years ago today. It was a very hard moment. It was a very hard stretch in my life. I'd shared previously on this show that in 2012, I went broke. I made $12,000 the entire year and set some pretty audacious goals relative in 2024. $10,000 a month for the first time in my life, $100K in a year for the first time in a year, and was fortunate to hit those goals. What I didn't share that last time is during that period was also when my father would pass away. My father passed away in May. A few months later was when I would go over $10,000 for the first time in a month. I had a good month on a few fronts. And so it was like I'd earned W-2 pay and some 1099 pay that put me over 10K in July of 2026. But the check that I didn't share for the full details, the check that I pulled out of the mailbox on July 26, 2024, that very exact day that I'd written on that gold card in December of 2002, not 2024. So July 26, 2004, that check that I pulled out that I'd written that exact day in December of 2002, that check was actually a life insurance check for my father passing away.
That's really, really crazy, man. That's a wild thing. And it was, when did you say 20 years ago today, did you say that your dad passed?
Yes, he passed away in May 20th, 2004.
Probably a topic for another day because I know we're at time.
Yeah. And really that was, it's like that. It was a very hard point in my life. Like at that point, the hardest thing I'd ever went through. It catapulted me into, I think within the next few years, I would have like 3 or 4 different promotions and it was like a hockey stick up from that moment. And I believe a lot of it was the maturation, the life lessons I learned is where there was areas in my life that I thought I was doing pretty well. There was also areas of my life that I wasn't. And there were areas of my father who maybe never made it financially. He did really well in these other areas of his life. And so going through that tough time, it was learning lessons and learning more about myself, both strengths and weaknesses that catapulted me to some tremendous success almost immediately following. Of many times in life I've had a tough period or a loss followed by a period of growth. That period 20 years ago was unquestionably the biggest such period of personal development and growth, and it started with losing my father.
Well, yeah, and it's funny when I said probably topic for another day. I actually wasn't trying to be dismissive. I'm trying to keep myself accountable because, this is one of those rainy day topics where I think there's so many interesting things about that, where it's the lessons of resilience, the moments that sort of have this through line that tie us together. Because, I've had moments like that where you've had things that seemingly inexplicably happen that seem astronomical on odds. And the random number generator of life is how most people attribute it. But I flip it around and I'm like, is it that, or is there something else? I don't know what it is, but you've given examples where it's law of attraction, power of positive thinking, where you've talked about even your journey into Web3, where, I've told the story to multiple people, that you made it your password of your computer. So you had to do it every single day. Yeah. Actually, me and Ms. NFT Bark talked about this over the weekend, where it's that idea of setting the goal and setting the intention and making it specific. And we talked to someone else, I won't say who talked about this is the year that my business is going to make $1 million. We were on a call with them and they're on track, and they made a point where they said, I need to make it specific. And I just think, I think there's a lot of discussions to be had around so many different things of what is your role in the universe? What is your role to attract positive things to you? Is it sheer randomness, or is there more to it? Because that story about your dad's life insurance check feels so on the nose as it's a movie script. If you wrote that in a movie script, you'd be that would never happen in real life, but it did. And I don't know, and I don't know what I'm trying to get at, but I think there's a lot of like discussions around like the resilience of that, the goal intention setting, the sort of karma tie-in that can happen with people, and like almost like if you're open to letting the world in to like give you these opportunities, sometimes the world will oblige. And I think there's just like so many things there that like make me emotional because I think about, or and like even then there's the other rabbit hole of like things where I'm like, man, you know, like it would have been really cool for my dad to see my book become a bestseller. You know, it would have been really cool for my dad to see my son play with 5-on-7 and just work his fucking ass off on the field as he like nearly is falling over from heat stroke because he's out there for his teammates and his sort of brothers who are out there with him, and like all these things that go through as well. And I just think there's a lot of directions you can go with that one. And I don't want to take us down too many because I know we're at time and we're both busy trying to, eat what we kill in Web3 and all that. But like, I appreciate you sharing that because I think that's one of those stories that like, I feel like there's a lot of those in life if you're paying attention. And I don't know, like, I guess I'm curious, like, before we end is like, what is your feeling on like law of attraction of like saying and having it come to you versus setting intentions versus the work you did versus, opening yourself up to the world in that way? Like, I guess, what are your feelings on that sort of concept?
Yeah, I can't be convinced otherwise, right? It's not even like, it's not a conversation about religion or a specific higher power, but for someone who's experienced multiple things like that in my life, down to this, the story I told you, it's like I would just say, okay, someone's like, oh, that's just cheesy. That's not, like, that stuff doesn't work. Like, goal setting doesn't work. Like, but yet, nearly every single, if not every person I know that's achieved great wealth and has been extremely successful, they think like this, they live like this. It's how they act, it's how they think. And having experienced it so many times myself, it's like I just say this, I do not think I'm the center of the universe. I think there's something. Maybe it's a giant simulation and like proof of simulation, like that is in the range of possibilities. I'm not saying it is, but it is a possibility. And as we see tech and AI continue to advance at such rapid clips, it's feasible. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's. I think there's powers far greater than you and I, and I do believe in things like karma and do good to others, treat others as you want to be treated. Like I do think about putting good out into the universe, both consciously and subconsciously. And I am a firm believer in the power of the subconscious mind. And that's when it starts getting a little cosmic and this weirdo to some people. But I think thoughts are things. I think, yeah, if you don't think you can do something, like if I didn't think we could build a career in this space and that, then we shouldn't even try. Like we're never going to land a sponsor with Coffee with Captain. It's too hard. We, relative to traditional media, it's just, we don't have a big enough base. Well, then we shouldn't even try. Like, don't even make the effort. If you don't think you can do something, you've already lost. You're going to make it much, much harder to get there. Whereas often if you believe you can do something so much as you convince yourself it's already done, and you constantly remind yourself of that, like, you do find a way. Like the universe often has, it's just, I am not smart enough. I don't understand how all the dots connect. I do believe the subconscious mind is very powerful. One of the best ways I ever heard it described to me, Steve, was they said it's like think of like a Viking boat, and your subconscious mind is the crew of the boat, and you are the captain of the boat. It's funny, I've never put this together with the name I go by now. This was told me like 20 some years ago. Your crew, like if the captain says row, what's the crew do?
They follow the ship.
They do what the captain says. They follow the captain's orders. And your subconscious mind is the same way. If you tell it you can do something, it often does, or will attempt to find a way. Sometimes it may take longer than you think, but it gets there. Whereas same thing, if you say stop or don't do something, it's really, really hard, I found too. All right, I guess I don't even make that attempt because I believe so much in that if I'm attempting to do something, I'm already convinced that I can do it. It's very possible, and often telling myself it's already done. Now we just need to connect the dots. And I haven't spoken on this for a while. This used to be incorporated in all my especially when I owned my Verizon stores and we do sales trainings and stuff. Like my sales trainings was success principles and goal setting and more life training than tactics on how to close a sale. But I haven't talked on this subject for like a decade. I guess it's not been quite that long. But anyways, it is. I don't want to come across as like. It can sound like not only cosmic, it can also come across as like arrogant at times, and I don't mean it to sound like that. I believe confidence is important, and because the subconscious mind is so powerful, you should believe you can do something. And you will likely find a way if you do believe you can. It's just there's that fine line between being confident in your ability to not only in your talents and your skills, but in your ability to be resourceful. I think was a word you mentioned a couple of times, and find a way. I think that the dots will eventually connect, and oftentimes it's something that appears to be serendipitous that's outside of your control that sometimes just happens when you're ready. And it's sometimes we think we're ready before we're actually ready. Getting way too deep though, Steve. I'm going to hand the mic back to you and let you land the plane.
No, I agree. I think that there's something there, and I've had enough experiences similarly where it's like, and the power of your mind, the power of positive thinking is very real. Like, I worked with a therapist on like self-worth stuff, and she sent me this video, and I'm not going to recap it entirely, but if you look up there's a video, like if you just look up like I am enough, like therapist video, there's a British lady who had a bunch of clients, and she talks about it, these people that have this low self-worth, and like she has them literally create a mantra, which sounds stupid when you're repeating it at first until you start to believe it, and make it your phone background and write it on your mirror and like all these different things where she had these people write like I am enough, and she saw a change in their behavior from a simple activity of believing in yourself. And sometimes like I had this moment the other day, and I tweeted kind of like gonna run 2021 back and then some, very similarly, where it's like, look, I wouldn't say like I got fully burnt out, but we ran really hot and fast for 3 years. And I, then Starbucks ended sort of unexpectedly. I took on some different work. I got sick a couple times, which doesn't happen to me. I don't get sick, like super sick very often. And, that happened to me a couple times. And I've been, having some different other types of struggles. And like, I was walking in the park. So my son, one of the reasons we're getting 2 cars is that we need to, take kids to things. Took my son to, my wife dropped me and my son off at soccer. We practiced a half hour before soccer, left him at practice. I walk 4.5 miles during his practice in this park that's right next to it. Then I go and I pick him up. We walk 1.5 miles home. And while walking this 4.5 miles, like I'm sitting there listening to music, and I like felt myself lock in, like a door opened up, like a portal opened up, where I had this like self-belief and declared to myself the things I was going to do. This was I think Thursday this week, maybe Wednesday last week. And it changed my interactions and like the rewiring of my mental, like whatever moment that was that clicked. And it's like, I'm ready for the second half of 2024. I'm ready for the things that are coming both from a personal and professional standpoint. And I think I don't want to get too deep into it because I want to go, make it happen. But like the way the wiring in my mind clicked, and it makes a difference. And the way you approach things makes a difference. And like, to your point, like, having in your mind that something's already done, like, yes, you might be disappointed, but like, it's worth being disappointed. Like the person who says like I'll get on like, it's funny when I get on the treadmill and I like watch like highlights from like the NBA games or whatever, I'll pop on the treadmill and I'll turn on some YouTube highlights or a virtual run or something. And if I tell my head in my mind, I'm going to run for 10 songs, give or take, a song can be 3 to 5 minutes. Doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to run for 10 songs. So it's going to be like 4 or 5 miles, whatever the number is. If I tell myself I'm going to run for 10 songs, I count 10 songs on my fingers and I run it. If I get on there and I'm like, I'm going to run and see how I'm feeling, you'd be surprised how much after 3 or 4 songs, I'm like, I could probably get off. Maybe I'll just get on the spin bike. Maybe I'll just go lift. Like the intention setting really fucking matters. And like the fact that I have the same physical fitness, no change day to day, but one day I can run for 45 minutes, and the other day I can only run for 20 minutes. There's something to be said about setting your intentions, dude. So I think everything you're saying makes sense to me, and I think it's a good just overall like rainy day discussion when we have a slower news day to kind of run through some of this stuff, because I don't know, at least to me, like there's something there, and like I don't know what it is, and I don't think we can fathom what it is, but I've had enough like weird experiences like that I think you're onto something, Cap. So I don't know. All that said, good way to end the show, and I appreciate you sharing the story about your dad, because like there are things similarly with my dad where I've had moments like that I haven't shared with a lot of people that I felt very connected to what you said there. So all that said, thanks to everybody who came by this morning. Really good discussion across the board. Talked a lot of stuff content creation wise. I think there's a lot of good things to cover there. I might make a video on that. I might have some tweets on that. I have a lot of thoughts on stuff we talked about this morning. But yeah, all that said, I'm going to go get to work. Cap's going to go get to work. We will see everybody bright and early tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time. Make sure you check out that Moonbirds Monday space that Sheba's got. I should pin it to the top, seeing if I can get it installed to pin it to the top for others to find. Should have mentioned it. I know he's out there every day. He listens here every day. We appreciate it. I'm going to try to at least attend and listening if I'm not if I'm not able to go up and speak or from meetings. And we'll talk to everybody bright and early at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody.
This episode is brought to you by DGen Network, the only community-based Web3 media network, bringing you the very best content in the NFT and cryptocurrency space. Please visit dgen.network and check out our other great shows. That's DGen, DGEN.network.
Welcome to the future.